Today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And when you use my code right now, HMA, they'll put $50 in your account when you put a $5 lineup down. Hard to beat that. They've got baseball, basketball, heck, they've even got the seasonal picks up here for the NFL season. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do remember to gamble responsibly. Oh, I'm live. Gosh, it's late in the day, folks. Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane. I do appreciate you for watching on in. We got a little special breaking news live stream show for you here today. As we didn't know when the sale was going to be going through. We knew the Seattle Seahawks sale was en route. And yeah, turns out we've got sale going through finally here with the Khosla Family, as I'm learning still pronounce it. Give me a couple days on this one. That is decided by the Seattle Seahawks. They are the bidder that has come into place to purchase the team for a tidy sum of $9.612 billion. So you get the centerpiece of this is Vinod, the kind of the patriarch, I guess we would call it, of the family there. And he is going to be the one, along with his family members, he'll be overseeing with this ownership coming now into play. There's not going to be a lot of, I think, expansive thoughts to be said about this, as there's a little bit of an unknown to this. I do think that there are some specific set things I wanted to cover tonight. We've got a really big show set up for you guys tomorrow. We're going to be doing an NFL season preview, predictions, looking at everything, going even into fantasy. So we're going to be delving in super deep tomorrow night, but I wanted to get into this tonight because there is some consternation out there amongst the Seahawks fan base a little bit. You're feeling it from them, just a bit of a hair on this one, and not for not understandable reasons. Okay, if I tell you that somebody that's had season tickets going back to when they're like 11 years old and for 30 years to a particular team that's your arch rival, that's your nemesis, that then after successfully doing what they've done as an entrepreneur, now becomes a very small minority owner in that same team that they followed, and that their son follows that team. And then now that guy is going to buy your team. I understand that just on the surface of this, it looks a little bit worrisome, and it's got people, just a little bit concerned out there. So let's kind of go blow by blow for this, just if we can, a little bit on this. And as I said, I think, Dan Viennes did a great job tonight earlier on, really getting into the depths of Vinod and what he's done in his track record and all of that. I don't want to come back over into territory there. I want to cover into more of what I'm kind of hearing as far as the concerns and questions that are sort of lingering out there amongst this sale. First off, why the Seattle Seahawks are being sold now. Just to recoup, I know many of you already know this, but the Paul G. Allen Family Trust dictated that this thing got sold upon his death, and those assets were liquidated to charitable organizations, which is what is going to happen now. Jody took as long as she possibly could to not make this sale happen. She stood back and said, I don't want to let this necessarily thing go. Paul built something good. She was able to culminate Paul's work in so many ways, and that she was able to still go get a Super Bowl championship after he passed on. I mean, the work she did allowing this to still be able to come to be cannot be understated, and will probably be appreciated with time. But she was getting fined by the NFL. We heard reports last year that $5 million was getting hit to the team. Now that's for an ownership. That's a little bit of, I'm not going to call it chump change, but it's more akin to probably nickels in your couch cushions. Still, it was them saying to the Seattle ownership, hey, you got to get this thing sold. This sitting out here in limbo is not good for the league. Get this thing moving. Seattle got the thing moving now, finally. And so this is why this thing's got to be sold here and now. It couldn't really hold off any longer. And Jody did a fantastic job. In fact, you couldn't have asked for a better job from Jody Allen and her stewardship of this and what she inherited from Paul and the standard that he set. And we're going to be talking about that in a second. Here is, maybe the most important part of all of this. Why is he leaving the Niners? I think that this is going to be one of those questions out there that's rightfully posed, as I just laid out to you guys a second ago. Why would you leave this organization that you seem so richly attuned to? Number one, everything we understand about this family seems to be that they're sports fans above all else. I think you've seen guys that have had, we've had two former 49ers here as it is in our past history that have brought us some of the best success in our organization's history. Pete Carroll grew up loving the 49ers. Mike Holmgren grew up in the Bay Area and was a 49er originally. It didn't seem to prevent those guys. Now, I know people will say ownership is a little bit different, but that being said, what we seem to hear about these guys, that they are sports fans above all else. They had gone to Silicon Valley as just kind of the place, it seems, as much as anything, with his son microsystems background and technical background. I mean, if you're going to be in IT, on the way, you're in kind of one of the two places here in this country. It's most part. It's going to be up there in Seattle, or you're going to probably be in Silicon Valley. And so if you're there, then going to Niner games is kind of naturally kind of bent out of that. Now, I think that what's happened here is that though he bought in, he got a very small percentage. Was it 3-4% that he got into? Because a lot of these owners now that are not cash rich, do not have a big bankroll, will now go out there and they'll just kind of divvy up little parts and pieces of their team. And rather than selling the whole thing, they maintain the controlling factor of it. But then they're able to then liquidate and get a little bit of extra cash injection in there to help pay for these monster contracts that you got to hand out there now. So though he was an owner per se, he wasn't there with any control. And when you look at the 49ers situation, and especially for a guy that's been following them for a long period of time now, a 30-year period where essentially he got in just as you're leaving out of the most successful era that they've had, hasn't exactly watched an organization that's been a picture of perfect health in how they're running things and what they're doing. Just look at what's going on with them right now. You've got the end of the Shanahan era, which is just coughing along with its death rattle, and yet they don't want to let it go. They're holding on to it with dear life. They won't hit the reset button. Probably doesn't look too smartly run in that respect of things. You got things like the substation issue, which never should have been an issue in the first place. Why are we even having to deal with this? Why was this? I mean, you never know the guy like, why was this team in the first place? You moved out this far away from San Francisco. Doesn't make a lot of sense there. You've got things like the Brandon Ayuk situation and the contract squabbles that we seem to hear about from the Niners when it comes to guys needing to get extended and this guy needing to get paid, and we're going to have a hold in over here. And then you've got as well, just through this offseason, as I'm watching it from a 49er owner perspective, and look, I'm sure that this decision from their standpoint came through a lot sooner than just this offseason, but I think that this is a little bit of representation of this. You have a Niner team that we can all see is once again wringing that dry rag, hoping for the last couple little bit of drops that will come out the bottom of it that will hopefully met out a championship for them. And you look at him, you go, okay, I understand that. Well, Mike Evans, you brought in, you're getting Drake Greenlaw back in the house. Here you go. You're going to try to run it back one more time here. I maybe a little bit overdue for the reset button, but I get it. You still feel like you love your talent. If you can keep them healthy, okay. But that means you want to maximize everything. That means you want to push everything in as far as you can. That means you want to make sure that you're not leaving anything as an advantage not on the table. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm walking into potentially the season with $71.5 million in cap space for a team that's supposed to be going for it, if I'm an owner watching that and keeping in mind I'm an owner that maybe doesn't have as much of a voice in those situations to say what's what and who's who, I got to just kind of watch that and take that, knowing probably from the standpoint of his background as an entrepreneur that you can't afford not to put every advantage out there that you can and take advantage of everything that's out there to take. If there's 70 million cap, use all that cap space. If you're in, as I've always said, a Super Bowl window, which nobody in Niner land would argue against. No owner, no front office, no coach, no player. They'd all say, yeah, that's where we're at. That's what we're trying to do. And yet, starkly, you see them sitting on this cap. And then you've got stuff like the Brandon Ayuk thing still kind of sitting out there. It wouldn't add up to a picture of if I was a guy that had bought in as a partial point of ownership, one that would make me go, yeah, I want to stay on this ride. This is a lot of fun. I'm really, really feeling like I got no voice. Things are being run in a couple different directions in the wrong fashion. Say what you will about the substation and it being woo-woo science or not. The fact that it gets to such a ridiculous point that it's in the player's head shows this a situation that got kind of out of control a little bit. And now it's pretty much a national narrative. Versus he's getting to watch the Seattle Seahawks organization over that same period of time walk into the NFC West and dominate the NFC West over that time. 49ers have had some of their runs through that time. Rams lately have done really well. But nobody in this division, since the Seattle Seahawks walked into this division, have won more divisions and have won more Super Bowls. So he's gotten to watch one organization on one side of it being run really, really well, while this organization, though they're having some successes, sometimes it's almost despite themselves. And maybe he has a little bit of I got a chance to own a holdout. I get the full control and I get to be a part of an organization that has a standard in place where they're not doing silly crap, where they're not like having stuff as far as advantages left off the table or letting squabbles perpetuate. They're nipping it in the bud. And so maybe this is a little bit of, on my part, being an optimist about this to a degree, but people are sort of selling this as he's going to come in here and be a saboteur. The man's worth $13.7 billion. He just bought this team for around $10 billion. So a man eliminates almost all of his net worth down to like $3 or $4 billion in order so that he can sabotage one team in the division to allow his team to finally get over the mountaintop, which may not occur because they still have to go up against the Rams, even if that's what we're trying to sell as him doing. I'm a big fan. I love this team. If I got $14 billion, I don't know if I'm kicking 10 down the track to go to the Niners to sabotage them. I might just go, let's do it legit. This is, again, on the surface, you look at it and then you look a little deeper beneath the surface on it and it gets a little ridiculous to consider. Like, you go, and again, we go, okay, no, Brandon, this is a real thing. Okay, it's a real thing. Where in NFL history, where in sporting history do we have any owner who basically troll bot? I'm going to blow my money out. I'm going to blow a monstrous portion of my net worth out in order for me to burn it to the ground. There's a lot of owners that have burned teams to the ground, but you better believe it wasn't on purpose. You better believe they were trying to create champions, one and all. So that's the problem here with this, is that it doesn't make sense from him burning the stack of his net worth to do this. It also doesn't make sense from, I always say, if you want to say, okay, this is going to be a thing that's a thing, this thing's a thing. Okay, where's my history that I can base this on? Where's somebody doing this, historically speaking, that this adds up to anything? And I can't find it. And if we can't find it, as I always say, let's not count on the anomalies. Let's count on more of what we know about this, which is that this guy's going to more likely than not be all in on wanting to win and unlikely to do a lot to just suddenly dislodge the process of what Seattle's been doing up until this point. We don't know if he's going to be committed to winning as far as to the same degree that the Allen family had shown that they were. It doesn't get better with Paul. Paul came in here and saved this team. He came in here and put money out of his own pocket to help get the stadium made. I think if the new owner is going to be as hot to trot on getting a new stadium eventually made as sometimes has been talked about through the sale process, he'd be really smart to maybe come out of his own pocket if he's going to try to go out there and levy public funds on this to maybe get this sold a little bit easier to that side of it. But with that said, is he going to, bring that commitment level? Is he going to have state of the art here and state of the art there? And at every edge, as Mike McDonald says, chasing edges, that part's the we shall see. And no one's going to have any answers tonight as to whether or not that is going to be the case or how that's going to play out. We're just going to have to see how this kind of all, sort of shakes out in that way. I will say that I think that the Seahawks have shown that this has been a fairly exhaustive process, and that I just have continually come back to believing that Jody Allen, she was built in a way to be flippant and errant and sort of half in on this whole thing. I'll wait out. Would have sold the team earlier. Would have gotten out from under this heavyweight you have to carry and being this steward of this team at that point faster. Wouldn't have pushed in so many ways to try to get this team back to winning and moving on from Carroll and the trade of Russell Wilson and rubber stamping those and saying, yes, I'll sign off on those moves. She had to sign off on those and doing so. That she's not going to carry this forward, take this torch from Paul, and for years be running through the night. Trees hitting her in the face, brush cutting her arms, legs tired and weary. And grabs a championship as she's just getting to the end. She's carrying that now. And then she's going to come over here now and then sell it all to the wind. Sell it all to the guy that's going to take it out of town. Sell it all to the guy that's going to put the team down in the dirt. I have a real hard time, a really real hard time seeing this be the way that that's going to play out from Jody's perspective. It makes so much more sense that she comes at this with the same comprehensive approach that allowed for her and this team to get back to a championship state of things. I understand the theory on the fear on this. It's very valid. It's not, look, we've had some bad owners here, and our track record of owners buying from the outside in hasn't been great. In a lot of ways, I think that the Seattle local people have a little bit of PTSD on this. We've gone through some battles and fights, and it's not fun. And it sucks having your team finally ripped away after so many battles and fights to then you actually have a team taken from you. So I get the fears within this, but I think you're going to be okay here. I think Jody's going to continue to guide this right, even when it's from beyond her own stewardship onto the next. And everything we're hearing about this, that does seem to be, the case. Another question that comes up on this is, why did another owner not emerge? Local owner? Why did not somebody locally pounce out here and pop up on this? Does nobody care? Well, let's think about this a little bit. Has the track record really been great with local people that are, have the money to pull this off and going and buying the team? Yeah, Paul Allen did so. But in a lot of ways, Paul Allen wasn't just, chomping at the bit to do this. He owned the Blazers at the time, and there was a lot of pressure put upon him with Ken Behring threatening to try to steal the team to buy the team. And Behring was an outside guy that bought the team. And while Nordstrom started it up, he went to Behring. And we've had the Nintendo owners and Jeff Smolian in basketball. We've had Clay Bennett come in here and take the team as he did. Even Howard Schultz, though, was supposed to be a local owner. It didn't go so great there with him owning the Sonics and how that whole situation played out. And so you come back and go, look, I get the fears on this. We just won't know on this. I am concerned, like you guys are, that this is going to be able to continue as it has been. We just don't need anything broken. As far as how this is going to play out in regards to the quote unquote, I guess, management of this day to day and what we're kind of hearing about with that, we're getting a little bit of more information. Adam Schefter, memo just sent out to all of NFL teams regarding the agreement to sell the Seattle Seahawks for record $9.612 billion. Following a thorough sales process run by Allen and Company, the estate of Paul Allen has reached agreement to sell the Seattle Seahawks to the Khosla family and several limited partners, subject to membership review and approval. Allen and Company reported very robust interest in the club throughout the process, with the Khosla family emerging as the club's preferred buyer among many qualified bidders. The Khosla family currently owns a limited partner interest in the San Francisco 49ers and will be required to divest that interest. The Khosla family includes Neeru Khosla, who would serve as the controlling owner, Vinod Khosla, and their son, Neil Khosla. Neeru Khosla is an educator and entrepreneur. Vinod Khosla is a tech investor, co-founded Sun Microsystems, and currently runs Khosla Ventures, which he founded. Neil Khosla is the CEO of Kirai, an AI health care company. Neil will be expected to have a significant leadership role in the ownership group. Allen and Company have kept us informed throughout the process, and the commissioner and league staff have discussions with the Khosla family and its representatives. We also have commenced both review of key transaction documents and customary bump and a bump and a bump and a bump. So the two real important parts of this are that the Neeru Khosla will serve as the controlling owner, technically speaking, on this, and then that the son, Neil, would be expected to have a significant leadership role in the ownership group. I think those were the two parts that really did stand out to me on this, and make you understand this is going to be definitely a family affair. And you would just, again, wonder on this part of the saboteur stuff, you can bring in all this, your family and help in there to do that. I don't think that's the way this is going to go. But that is how this is set up. And so what can we hope from here? Well, I think that if I was to just send a message out to Vinod and the family trust, I would say, look at what Paul Allen's done here. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. You do not have to come up with something that's got to be all your own and new. You are taking over in many ways a machine, and it's in many ways a young machine. And that this organization that's been built up has been one that's been built up not just with its front office and players, but within the people within that facility, we've gotten a good chance over the last year to take a little bit of a look behind the curtain. John Schneider's done a good job of presenting these people on 710 and some of the behind the scenes stuff that we see from the channel of the Seattle Seahawks, introducing us to these people and the realization that a lot of them and how long they have been there. Not merely just with the Schneider organization, not merely halfway through Schneider's term, the people that go back all the way through into the early days of Mike Holmgren. And that you have built this championship, yes, on the back of smart organizational run at the front side of this, from the general managers to the coaches to the players, and how they executed it. But it was also what has existed here in the spine behind the scenes that really lets this thing come to life in a major way, I think. And I would hope that they walk into this and they can get a sense of that and a breath of that and an understanding of, what do I need to do here right now? And I always say with an owner, your job coming in owner is not to do a lot of different things. You need to come in with your pocketbook and not be worried about profit. You need to come in and be a little bit humble and understand that there's a tendency by new owners and owners in general to have their ego stroked, to let their ego be let loose on things a little bit. And that sends franchises in a wayward direction very, very often, even with the willing purse strings out there. In fact, I would say a lot of the times the big egoed guys are the guys oftentimes with the biggest purse strings. Maybe they're trying to compensate for something. You know what I mean? Just saying. And so I would say, if you're an owner on this, don't walk in here with ego. Don't walk in here thinking that you need to come in here and reestablish, reinvent, turn anew. You need to take and steward, such a great word. Take what is here and what has been built and built brick by in many ways over the last 30 years that Paul Allen has owned this team. Brick by brick, in the background of the people that run the show, from the equipment managers to the people that are, just helping out the players individually, to everybody in between, to what you built from staff-wise of those people that work together with John so concurrently, and is what, allows him to be able to do his job at a high level. It just keep it to form. Don't feel like you got to reinvent. And be willing to spend and chase those edges at an ownership level in the way that they have set the standard at the general manager level and at the coaching level. Take that and pull that page out of your book. How can we continue to set and be at the forefront of science and sports science? And look, that facility in there is getting redone. I'm sure that this has a lot to do with it. Good. That's the type of stuff we should see, the air travel and making sure that that's at its best. These are the things you can do as an owner to have substantial effect. I think a lot of them don't want to come in and do something. Feel like they got to come in there and get their hands a little dirty. Not with this organization, not right now. I hope they recognize that above anything else individually that they need to do. And that's the part, as I come in, just finish this up, we will see. That's the part that we won't know until the rubber meets the road and this thing's actually live and we get to see what this team really gets to do. My final thought on this was that there is a good other aspect to this, because there is a part to me that's, wondered a little bit at times in watching two different things going on at once here that have been very unusual at this time of year for your Seattle Seahawks team. Throw this formula together. You're a team with some of the most cap space in the entire National Football League. And then you're sitting on the least amount of dead money, which championship teams are going to tend to utilize dead money as a way to kind of create extra cap space. So when I reference that, think of it as kind of you don't want to use a lot of dead money. You don't want to be $80 million deep, but $500,000 is a far cry from that. There are teams right now with $111 million of dead money on the books, and you're at $500,000. Now, this is a representation of a well-run organization. Coming off of a Super Bowl championship, to not have that dead money is profound. But does this now free John up in certain ways where if you do have a new owner you're trying to bring in, you're trying to, court the best of owners, you do want the books clean, don't you? It doesn't matter whether it's football or matter any other business. You're going to want to have things up to snuff on that front of things. So the fact that, you've kind of kept the books where they are kind of falls in alignment with that. Now can the new owner come in here? Can John come to this new owner and go, okay, this thing's going to be done. Can we go out there and do Exhibit A, Exhibit B now? Again, we shall see with this part of it, but maybe a part to be worth getting a little bit excited within this when considering the current situation of the cap and that dead money. I don't think I've seen John Schneider over the last 15 years come into a season with this much amount of cap space and this little of dead money on the books in combination. I understand he's got a couple of deals maybe he's going to need to be getting done here with Leonard Williams and Witherspoon that make that cap space a little bit less than it is. But all that being said, I think that that's pretty significant, again, in consideration the fact that you are the team coming off the Super Bowl championship. Not merely a team that got into the playoffs and we're just kind of trying to get up to the next rung here, but you got to the mountaintop, and by all measure, push that pedal even further down. We'll see. Let me bounce over to you guys in the chat. Appreciate you watching tonight. Again, it will be I know I often say this, but it will be a quick show because we're going to have a really long show tomorrow at 5:00. Going to be getting into real deep depth as far as the upcoming NFL season and some of the things that I think about the season. I'm going to be talking about where I think the thing's going to go as far as trends in the league, formations, and all of that. We're going to get into the players. We'll get into war predictions. We'll get into season predictions. We'll get into even fantasy predictions. So we're going to get into all tomorrow at 5:00 Pacific Standard Time. Please do be checking out the show at that time. If you can, hit that like button. Please do subscribe. I also, if I may be so bold, would like to thank the sponsor of the show, which is going to be Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports app, and they're sponsoring yours truly and has been and will be doing so throughout the course of the season. And when you do a $5 lineup, a mere $5 lineup, they'll put $50 into your account. You got baseball humming right now. Mariners trying to find their way. We got football on the horizon, but you can get the combo picks in there as far as that goes. You can do daily, weekly fantasy. You can get your seasonal picks. As I've gotten right now, my picks up here last couple weeks showing you guys Jackson over 1,324 yards. I'm buying into Jackson at that mark. Jacoby Myers, I do believe he's going to emerge as the #1 wide receiver out there for the Jacksonville Jaguars, despite the fact they actually have some kind of underrated amount of wide receivers out there. So take advantage of those picks today. Go out there and make yourself some money. Terms and conditions, of course, do apply. Please do see their site for details. And yes, I know in the state of Washington that you can't necessarily use the app if you're outside of a casino, but we got a lot of casinos. So if you're in a casino on their network, you can use the app in full. Utilize Prize Picks today. Put your sports knowledge to the test. And do remember, please, gamble responsibly. All right, let's pop to you guys in the chat, see where you're at tonight. Thank you for watching this evening. I hope everyone's having a good one. Megan, good to see you in the chat as well. Hope you're doing well. Says, heard this in church this morning. 49er steak will be sold is what I heard. Love the news. Well, they're all running from San Francisco to Seattle. It's a sinking ship. It's a sinking ship, and they're trying to leave the vessel before they go down with it. You got Sammy D. You got Clint Kubiak. And now we got Vinod. They're all coming over, Megan. They're all making their way up north. The gold rush is over. The mines are tapped out. They ain't got any memory left out there in Silicon Valley. Appreciate you, Megan. Hope you're having a great night. And indeed, he's got to sell his steak now, so we'll see who's chomping at the bit to spend. What does it got to be now? 3% is like you got to spend like $200 million just to sit in a corner and listen to the Niner news in person. I mean, like, what do you get as far as your sway in the room at 3%? Like, you can make some facial reactions. We'll react to your face. So you don't get to say anything. You don't have talk control. You have face control. We'll let you have a little bit of, like, if you make a sour face when we say something, we'll take that into account. If you smile at something, we'll take that into account. Okay, Vinod? That's what 3% gets you. You get facial reactions. You don't get a voice. War Chief, thank you for the $5 donation as well, man. Good to see you in the house. Aloha. Aloha B. Mr. K was a 3% shareholder, and he just signed up last year. No deep loyalty for the Niners. There's a former Seahawk in this group. Any ideas who it is? Ooh, I know. We heard the former Seattle Seahawk in there. I did find that interesting. Hard to say. I mean, my best guess would be, man, it is really tough to say, because you would want to go to a Legion of Boom, a Legion of Boom member. Russell's got the cash to do it, right? He's got the both the will and the money to want to do it from that standpoint. If I was to think it was Marshawn or it was Cam in there, like they would be coming together and it'd be more than just one guy. But like you say, what we're hearing is that it just seems to be a former Seahawk in the group. So my best guess would be probably Russell on that, if I had to make a guess there. But these guys I know, like Marshawn, never spent any of his money supposedly, and it's just been saving it up and investing it. And so maybe a guy like that's thinking about doing this. You never know on that type of stuff. But I can't think of anyone being from the older days. I can't think like Matt Hasselbeck would come in on this. I can't think of another, one that stands out that would have the money to do it, more chief, because it's unless they're just coming in at such a real small stake and that's where I think a lot of this comes into where I don't know the details. It may be that they actually have a little bit more significant stake than this, but it does feel to be almost one where it's kind of like it serves sort of a couple different things allowing a player to come in on this. Number one, you're a 49er coming from the outside in, and this ingratiates you into the fan base really well as a new owner and saying, hey, I'm bringing in a literal Seattle Seahawk to make sure we're guiding this right. Number two, I think it does speak to the players in that, you want players taking ultimate ownership in the team and ultimate, you're part of family, you're part of this. It doesn't get any more so than this when now you've gone through the full process of I've been drafted, I've been played my career, I had a great career, and then I'm now part of the ownership of the team. You are embedded at that point. So it's a cool concept. I do like it. I don't know what the detail of it would be, but those would be my best guess. Would be probably a Russell. Maybe a Bobby, maybe a Russ, maybe kind of a Marshawn there, but it'll probably be a very small percentage in as much, like I say, just because then you can kind of quiet down a little bit of some of the stuff about outside coming in. You're a Niner fan buying a Hawk, WTF, that kind of thing. Good to see you tonight, though, War Chief. Hope you're doing well. John, thank you for the $5 donation. Well, it looks like we got a new owner. Going to rinse the 49ers stench off of him. A couple Super Bowl wins should do it. Current San Francisco fans not used to Super Bowl trophies. Yeah, we're just going to have to, I don't know, put him in, remember the Shawshank Redemption, John, where they put him in there and they pounded him with talcum powder. Just hammered him with a talcum, whatever that was lye. Maybe it was lye. That's probably what it was back then. We're just gonna have to bathe him in some lye when he gets up north. You know what I mean? But hey, kind of brings up also, John, if you can't beat him, join him, right? That old rule of thumb. It's an interesting situation. It's hard to find too many representations of like this in the past NFL history, but I think he's going to be willing to, based on his track record of what he's done business wise, to be committed to being a success and willing to do what it takes to be a success. And he doesn't seem to be kind of a penny pincher, or that you get the feeling from him that there's no real red flags coming off the situation up to this point, at least. There's nothing blindingly like, this is a warning, Just got to get the tank of lye out, John. Little lye. Just hit him with some of that. We'll be good. Bathe him in the Puget Sound waters. It's good to see you, John. Thank you for the $5, man. War Chief, thank you for another $5 donation. B, Mr. K don't like limelight. It's reported he'll run it from the shadows. How much do you think he partakes in the draft or scouting, though? Well, the fact that he's a longtime fan like that of 30 years, you do get fans that I think get to that point 30 years deep. And, even if you start out casual, there's an element to this sport. It's part of the wonderment of this sport to me that it draws you in and it pulls you into its bosom of layers. And you start to get in the draft and you start to get into free agency and you start to get in that stuff. And I think that we'll learn with time with this. I think it's a little bit TBD. I think if I was a guy that would own a team, that I would be doing some of this stuff. I think that some of the stories that had come out even over the last 6, 7 years about Paul Allen and the way that, he was not just hands off. It's like John Schneider would write him reports on Sunday after the game about what happened in the game and why things went this way or why things that went that way. He was very much embedded as part of the process. It didn't mean he took that information. Then this is where I think a lot of owners get this wrong. Paul took that information and he goes, this is stuff that I can use to build in my mind of understanding of what's going on. And that I don't have to do a he said, she said with this guy or that guy. I've got a week in and week out pulse I'm taking with my general manager, knowing exactly what's happening. And then I don't have to react off that every week. I think some owners kind of maybe get these kind of reports or get this kind of information and it's suddenly knee jerking at them to have to feel like they do something. But Johnny would just take it into account. And then when it come to the point to make a major decision, I've got all of this in the bank to base that decision off of, rather than he said, she said. And so I don't know for sure on this, but I would estimate, you're going to be a little interested in it, I would think, to a degree. But it is interesting too. It wants to run a little bit from the shadows. I get that. Not everybody wants to be out front and have the mics, poking in their face and, saying every which. Everybody's built, to want to go do that part of it. So we'll see on that. But I think I would hope from his standpoint, he just kind of comes in and maybe it'll be of interest to him. But you don't want him coming in there being like, hey, John, here's my scouting report on Nick Harbor. I just don't think he's got the lateral movement off of his routes. I don't think his speed's quite to where DK is at. He's going to get those comps. Let's just avoid him. Okay, John? Okay. We're going to take him off the board. I don't think he's going to do any of that. I hope he doesn't do any of that. Please don't do any of that. Please no. No. Thank you though for the double dip, War Chief. You're awesome, man. Appreciate you. Baker Priest, thank you for the $2 donation. 49ers strat, win in my stadium, buy him. Insane. I mean, this Seahawks Super Bowl championship's got people turned in a certain way, Banker. No one expected it. No one knows how to react to it. You're seeing a lot of weird reactions at times out there to it, but maybe no stranger than this one, huh? No stranger than this one. And it's got to resound with Vinod. I'm operating with some assumptions, and obviously, when they say about when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So I probably shouldn't do this, but I am going to do it because it's fun. And there's an assumption in me if I'm in his shoes and watching what I'm watching with this Niner organization, as I kind of detailed at the front of the show, Banker, from the unnecessary drama, substation issues, moving the stadium out in the middle of nowhere, California. It just doesn't feel like and I'm owning this. I'm literally owning this, not just a fan. I'm owning this. My name's on this, this crap sandwich. I can kind of maybe get to the point where you go like, look up here, up just a little up to the north, these rivals, look what they're doing. And then they're doing it in our stadium. Not only they're doing it at the highest level, winning championships, not the first championship they've won even the last 12 years. They're doing it in our stadium. Like, it's no greater example to that things are in a little bit of an askew place, maybe perhaps. It's not that the Niners are bad. I don't want to make it out like they're one of these worst run organizations in the NFL. But from his standpoint, I'd like to build a champion. I've been following this team for 30 years and hasn't won jack squat. What are my hopes and indications that this team is going to win into the future? Because they're at the end of the Super Bowl window now. Like, it's going to look like, and because they've prolonged this window out so far, Banker, being the Niners, because they've sat there with like 5 men and a monkey wrench and the jaws of life on their Super Bowl window, and they're like, get up there, go for one more year. Because they've done that, you just prolong out a little bit more of the pain down the line, and it's going to take that much more time to reinvent yourself then at that point. But pretty crazy, man. Pretty insane. Good to see you in the house, Banker. Hope you're doing well, man. My 2 cents worth. Bobby, thank you for the $10 donation. Very kind of you, my man. People are making a big deal over they were 49er fans for 25 years, but don't people change? Pete Carroll was a 49ers fan. Mike McDonald was a Patriots fan. John Schneider was a Packers fan. Give them a chance. People change. Give them a chance. Where's my button, man?
Enough said.
Very well said, Bobby. I thank you for the donation, but I thank you even more so for your words. I find myself in the same place. And Pete Carroll and Intricate Niner fan, you brought up Mike, and I completely forgot that. Didn't stop him in the least from taking his childhood team out to the woodshed, did it? Mike Holmgren was another one I was bringing up earlier on this, Bobby, where it's like, here's another guy that, grew up, but he's playing the division with the 49ers, didn't cause him to sleep a wink. And indeed, really, as we finish off with this, though Carroll, not just when, I think this is because there's some people out there, Bobby, that go, well, the ownership to the coach thing's way different. I don't think it's all that different. But even still, I think these guys' representations, not only did they come here and coach at a great level, these men are Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll can go out there with the Raiders for a year, and he retires now, and he's a Seattle Seahawks coach. He's part of this organization. He'll be brought back into the fold with this organization in some ways, and he should be, and welcome with open arms. Mike Holmgren is still, to this day right now, advising Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald talked about last year that Holmgren literally advises him. So not only were they coaches of the Seahawks, Bobby, to your point, but then also they have remained, even into retirement, that these roots run deep once they are created. They don't snap like those San Fran roots, like those feeble, brittle. Oh, come on, Niner fans, have some fun with it. But I agree, man. I don't think that this has got to be a thing that's held back. And think about the 25 years he's watched. It ain't the Walsh run. It ain't Cool Joe back there slinging that dart. It ain't Steve Young making miracles happen with scrambling. No. He got to watch the Jim Drunkenmiller era. Old Jeff Garcia time. Remember the Tom Sula? Remember that one? Remember the Tom Sula years? The chest hair all out? Yeah. Just running on pure bravado, no coaching intelligence. That was a choice. That was a decision. Let's go from Harbaugh to that. Or the Chip Kelly experience. That was a fun one, huh? He had to sit through that. That sure makes you feel like a picture of like, hey, this ownership grit gets it. They get it. You might start getting on torque, right, Bobby? If you're in that position watching that stuff, you might go like, starts to build up to substations and Brandon Ayuk's, and you're like, can we just do something else? I just need a little bit of a fresh air. Well said, Bobby. Well said on your part. I agree in complete full, of course. And appreciate your support to the channel. All of you guys are amazing in everything you do for this channel. Eden Tech World, thank you for the $2 donation. Assuming they don't think Hawks go 7-10 this year. Yeah. Bucky Brooks definitely set some Hawk fans up, and rightfully so. I think that, Bucky on this one, I don't know if he gave this a tremendous amount of thought. I think that he believes what he says. I don't think he's BSing, but I don't know if he gave this an intricate amount of thought on building his case for this. He mentions complacency, but there's no proof of complacency of the Seahawks team throughout this offseason. We haven't heard any drama or need to squabbles. Nobody's gotten arrested off the field. We haven't heard about a lack of participation in the voluntary OTAs. Everything has been on point. The players are saying the right things. They seem hungry as ever. Then he talks about, we had to play the long year last year. You had to play the long year. Like the Rams have played a long years the last couple of years. The 49ers have played long years a lot the past couple of years of this roster, and they're beat to hell and old. Like, yeah, they're all dealing with the same stuff. So why are we the only ones then impelled by it, Ethan, from Bucky's position on that? You know, I I I just kind of found it a little bit. And Bucky, I think, is a very smart guy and usually does a lot of depth to what he says and builds a lot of his case off something. This seemed to be more akin to just kind of a, he's out there in LA. So I think that he's doing a little bit of drinking the Kool-Aid that's being heavily sold in LA too. And he's referenced that in the interview. But Brock rightfully pointed out, where he's like, when has the Seattle team ever been 7 wins? Whenever in the Schneider era are we operating from that standpoint? And this next year is going to be the year that we do it. It's not going to prove to be, I think, one of Bucky's better takes. This team might not get back to 12, 13, 14 win kind of place, but 7 wins. 7 wins? I don't know. I don't know on that one. Baker, thank you for the $2 donation. I thought AD in camp was the news of the day. Nope. I know. Jeez. This one just gets kind of brushed right over, but we're getting closer to the place of confirmation of Aaron Donald returning. And Aaron Donald is going to return. I know that I'm going to say this, and there's going to be a bunch of comments in my chat saying, bump-a-da-bump-a-da-bump-a-da-bump. If you guys notice with me, when I try to make predictions, I usually will hedge, or I'll say that this is the chances of this happening. I've been saying for weeks on end now to you guys in the chat, and every bit of proof that we've gotten since that point of initially telling you guys this, Aaron Donald is coming back. You can say, no. You can say, I don't know that. We can say, I don't this. I don't. He is going to be coming back this year. We are going to have to deal with Aaron Donald. The sooner we wrap our head around that and stop denying that Voldemort is real and out there, the better for all of us. But the monster is back. Hopefully 2 years of age have completely robbed him of all of his quickness and athleticism. And he can be just a shell of his once former self. Just watched the other day where they're doing the Raw Room chat there with Justin Forsett. I think it was Justin. It might have been somebody else. And they were talking about the play where Aaron goes into the backfield, catches Justin in the backfield, does his little spin you around move to get some, get some movement, some momentum going. And then after he's got you kind of slung shot around a couple of times, spinning you fast, then he hurls you to the ground and broke his arm to the ground, like threw him so hard to the ground that he snapped his arm on the ground. Watch that and then see him out there running through drills, and he's coming back. There's nothing else we can say about it, right? It's going to happen. But yeah, this is pretty big news here with this one, that's for sure. William Tarkowski in the house. What's up, William? It's good to see you, man. How old is the new owner, and will John still cook? Let me see here. So 55. Ooh, yeah, he's up there a little bit. Yeah, so 70, 71. Yeah, 71 years old. And I think that's the right question to be asking. Is the guy going to come in and is he going to upset the apple cart? Is he going to break what is not broken? That's the part we will see. I would love to say with ultimate confidence that I know with 100% authority that an owner would never come in with a Super Bowl championship roster and do something as stupid as to implement controls and change just for the sake of doing so, or for the sake of then getting himself credit for then when they do win. Because I mean, that's the part to remember on this. And that's the part that I hope he doesn't think of in his mind with this, that I think that a human mentality can be on this as you come in, and especially owners, because the thing you will get with the times with billionaires, of course, not all of them, but with a lot of them, will be that ego, will be that pride, will be that hubris, will be that, how much is it about me, angle of things. And so if you inherit a football team that's a championship roster and you don't do anything really change-wise of major movement, and then they win another championship, do you really get credit for that as the owner? Or is that more of, the old owner did it? You were just kind of riding on a little bit. And do they kind of think of it in that way? I hope he doesn't. You shouldn't. But pride's a funny thing in that way. Ego's an even funnier thing in that way. And it can drive men to do stupid things that are actually not in their favor to do, like not for their in their benefit to do. And I hope he doesn't, but I think it's the part that we've seen a lot of representations of in NFL history with owners coming in that they can't help themselves or they've just fallen into that trap. It is a pitfall of coming in and becoming an owner. And it's very hard to walk that line to being hands-on just enough to be in there and regulate at just the times that you're absolutely needed to do so. Not overactive, over energetic, but coming in like a sniper and pinpointing those moments for when you need to have that strong voice and come in there and say it. And this is the beyond the purse string stuff. This is the, hey, we would like to move on from Coach Carol Jody. Can we get you sold on this? Okay, gentlemen, let's break this down. Hey, we're going to look to move Russell Wilson. The time has come. Where you at on this, Jody? All right, let's get into it. Let's unpack it. So we'll learn with time with this, William. And I wish I had a better, point I could give you on this as far as where he's kind of leaning, other than just being hopeful on this. And that's where I'm at, is just to be hopeful, just to say, okay, look, you've been very successful in your life business wise. It's not leading with hopefully your ego to get there, and that you can understand that if I think if I was a new owner in the NFL, I think you're very smart to go, and everything's about collecting data and information on the past for me to try to learn things. And you've got a lot of owners, especially in recent years, that have bought teams that have had their varying levels of success, and find the ones and why have they been successful and why have these ones failed? Why is Jerry Jones not been able to find any success since he basically moved on from Jimmy Johnson? I don't count that 1 year with Switzer because that was still Jimmy Johnson's team. That was Switzer riding on Jimmy Johnson's coattails. But why has he failed in that time? Why has Cleveland failed in this time? Why has Tepper down in Carolina struggled? Like what has gone on with these ones, and what has happened with the ones that have succeeded? And can I find rules? Can I find ways of being that are going to lead to success versus leading to failure? And I think if any guy just took 5 minutes to kind of really look at that and be very clear with it in themselves, they'd come, William, out of it to say, yeah, there are. I can really operate off of my own sort of commandments for owning this team. And if I stay within this pocket, I should be fine. And if I deviate and step outside of it, that's where I'm going to start to go a little bit wrong. It's a good question, man. Bobby, thank you for another $5 donation, man. Appreciate you. Bobby says, remember Niru will be the controlling owner. I wonder how well she knows Jody. And I think it's very cool that we'll continue to have a female owner. Yeah, it is very cool. And Jody, of course, has done a fantastic job. And so, again, looking to just take the example of you've had, not that I think there's any similarities between just other than them being females. It's just got to take out a note of, Jody and what she's done. But certainly I think that we come back to, don't make things tougher on yourself than they need to. And I'm Niru and I'm coming into this situation, and I'm certainly going to have a lot of input from my husband and from Nero or from, Vinod, and we have a lot of input from this, son, like take that all into account, but utilize Jody as well within this. She's got to be a great resource at this point where it's like, hey, sister, you got any problems? You just give me a call. You hope that would be in play here with Jody, and I would guess that it would be, and that she's can kind of serve to help her out in navigating some of these waters up here to make things a little bit of an easier transition. Why wouldn't you? Especially again, back to the driving force being within Jody, of that you could have questions with her when she first took over for Paul and saying, okay, she's not a football fan. Okay, she doesn't, there's all these like kind of rightful points of potential criticism that could have existed within her, but she disproved it all. She upended it all. She showed instead that she was the complete opposite of what people were painting as the worst case scenario when she was going to take over for Paul, being somebody that didn't want to own the team and was just looking for how fast she could sell the team and wasn't going to be willing to put her pocketbook out there because she was trying to save all the ducats she could. All of that got disproven. So hopefully she can continue it on and just use Jody's example, Bobby. Yeah. Very cool with Niru doing it. Yeah. I have a feeling Vinod will be doing a lot of controlling, as someone had mentioned above us on this too, that there'll probably be a lot of this with him in the background on that, where she's de facto out there day to day, but he, I'm sure, will be also very strongly a voice in this situation. How do you have so much fur? I totally cat brushed you today. You still got ton of her. Bobby, you're awesome though, man. Appreciate the double dip. Jose Garcia, thank you for the $5 donation. I am hopeful the new owners will continue in the same direction the Allen ownership had this team going and that they will make the organization better. That's where you do is you keep things going same. But I mentioned the weight room facility is one of the places that got kind of nitpicked this offseason. It's been due to be remodeled and it's getting remodeled, I think, even right now, if I'm not mistaken, or due to be. That's the places you find. You find the places where you can make it a little bit better here, a little bit better over there, a little bit better over here, and just keep kind of adding on top of what is there. You don't take all his weather there and just wash it all away and start from fresh. You don't have to do that. Not with an organization this well run, with this much success, coming off the greatest of success. And I just can't think that they're going to come in here going through, especially they've already got to kind of gone through their sort of like, you got to speed run a little bit of what it was like to be an ownership in the Niners organization and what it's like to be one that's got some stuff, a lot of things that are running good, but also some things that are kind of disjointed a little bit and how they're set up, and that you get to be on kind of both ends now, maybe knowing what works and what doesn't work. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of wisdom to be brought into play off of some of the Niner experience here, and hopefully it'll be that case. But the Allen ownership group is the best ownership group of any Seattle sports team in the history of Seattle by a light year. Paul came in here and would have been enough just to save the team and keep him in Seattle. That would have been enough. But to come in here and say, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to get this team. We're going to get you into a stadium that's not a concrete jungle that looks like it was made for about $10 million. We're going to put you in a real stadium. I'll come out of pocket to do so. I'm going to come out of pocket to make sure we're going to bring in players and soup this thing up and soup it up immediately. Not going to wait. I'm going to get this going, get it going now. And there's none of this like, well, let's just hang out and chill and just like let the process play out. Allen was going to be a driving force in the process. And his sister has continued to push this. She did it with those moves of Carroll and Wilson at the time, which were not easy decisions. If you were just trying to sort of tread water and hit the cruise control button, you wouldn't have made those type of decisions. You did so anyway. And she was willing, as I showed on a Stat Cut like last year, a lot of people were wondering about Jody and saying, well, she doesn't really spend money. Seattle was top 10 in pure money spent in the NFL over the last 7 or 8 years, according to a report that came out last year. Over the same period of time she took over. Because there's the salary cap that you theoretically spend, and incentives you put into it, these type of little contractual things that you set in, that's theoretical money you spend. And then there's the actual money you spend from an NFL team's perspective. And there's a lot of funny money numbers out there to kind of make the books look to where you're actually spending up all the cap, but you're actually then pocketing some profit really on the back end on that stuff. Seattle's not done that. Top 10 in money pure spent. So just got to keep the organization going in the same direction, the same speed they've been going. Don't got to reinvent the wheel. And I'm hopeful, like you are, Jose, that they realize this. That's the part of this, though, that we will see, with time, and we will learn. All right, let's bounce over to you guys in the chat. Thank you guys so much for the donations and the support. You guys are just awesome as ever on that front of it. I really appreciate you for that. Hope everyone's having a good night. Again, if you can for me today, please do hit that like button. I know I asked for it a lot, but if you guys could, it does help push YouTube to push me out there on the old algorithm search, and does help. And if you got something you want me to reference, B, HawksNest, Brando, HN, we'll go for a little while tonight. Won't go super long, but we'll go for a bit tonight just to see where guys are at head-wise. Like to get a little bit of a pulse of the fan base if I can. We got Sherman. I'm seeing Sherman, KJ Wright. I'm seeing maybe a little bit of Bobby in there. There's some names that possibly could be the guy buying in there. Marshawn Lynch estimated worth 35-40. Yeah, it may not be enough there. I don't think even with investments, I'd get the job done. Marshawn's part owner of the Kraken, so it makes sense. There we go. That could be something there. It's going to be interesting to find out who it is. What about Steve Largent? He's pretty old. I don't know if Steve's got the decades to do it. He was in the NFL at that time when they weren't paying money like they did into that late 80s. JMG says, wouldn't Bobby have to retire to be in the ownership? I think you would. I don't know. It's never been on the table as a possibility, I don't think, before. Paul Brown wasn't down there strapping on the old leather helmet, you know. Gun Deep says, at one time I was 100% a Steeler fan, then I became a Seahawks fan. Anyone can change. Agreed. And it's not like he was born in San Francisco either. It's like they settled down and they're coming to America, but it's like, you know, he is from India. Yeah, the price tag definitely cut down the number of suitors. They got a half broken crowbar that has that window open by 0.0001%. It's a whole team. They got like 2 fire crews. Jaws, I'm telling you, Jaws alive. Even then, the wood's just kind of screaming. You know, like when you try to pull on the wood, that's all that's happening. Even then, like you say, you're just getting a little crack. One last little crack of life. Mays is what the person with the ties to the Seahawks. Actually, Jody Allen makes sense. She did reportedly want to buy into the team. That was one of the things that she was looking to do within this. So, interesting thought. Possible. They did say player, like Three Guns Deep did say, but Mays says, well, if it was a foreign player, it has to be Russ, the only one with serious cash. I mean, that's it. I mean, unless you're just having a person buying in with the 0.002%, right? Because 1% off of the 9.7 billion is going to still be pretty sizable. Like, even that's not just like, that's like that, quite a bit like right there. I don't think Hasselbeck's got the amount to do it. Brian says rage bait pretzel logic equals Bucky Brooks. Yeah. Odd for Bucky's a smart guy, man. And he's got a lot of stuff over the years I thought have just been grade A takes. But this was just one where I was like, Then he referenced the fact he's living down in LA, and I was like, It all starts to make sense. Rams house in the house. What's up, Rams house? What's up, being Hawks fans? We're just about 2 months away from regular season football. We're closing in, man. We got like about a week before the rookies report. And we finally kind of turn the full dead period here. I mean, today's news is going to kind of kick it off. We're going. We're cooking up. Nia says Aaron Donald can come back. Pete Carroll ain't coaching the team anymore. No more practice squad linemen going one-on-one versus him like Pete foolishly did. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a different territory in this. Look, Donald is still going to be, in the way he's kept himself in shape. It's not like he's just been sitting on a couch eating bonbons and, Philly cheesesteaks for the last 2 years. He's obviously kept himself in phenomenal shape, and I'm expecting he's still going to be a problem when he's out there. But like you say, we also did a horrific job throughout our time in dealing with Aaron Donald and our lack of willingness to address him as a problem. And Pete's pass pros with his offenses were always rudimentary at times and could be exposed very easily with stunts and loops and twists. But the fact that they would just refuse to double Donald, especially, was just phenomenally dumb. Phenomenally dumb. But it comes back to this is also a different type of team and how they run, how much you run the ball, and how much you've got to force every team you play to have to kind of be on their heels a little bit for the run. They can't just pin the ears back. And like when Donald played at a time that he did play, everything was about passing and throwing the ball as much as possible. So there's been some changes a little bit in the sport, the way that's played a little bit in that way. He'll still be very effective, but I don't think that this now puts them with the Garrett thing. There's no chance, which I'm sure is going to be the national media's perspective on this, is that the super team cannot be dethroned. No way, no form, no how. I don't agree with that, though. They're very strong. They'll be a tough challenge, but we got the means and an ability to add on top of what we got as well. John says, we have to game plan to go around the old fart AD. That's right. Zach says, I just love how the Rams are adding more pressure to win on themselves. Definitely ain't removing it. B's house. This is very random. Thoughts on the 2016 Falcons? Did you mean the 2026 Falcons? The upcoming year Falcons, or the Dan Quinn one? Yeah, the Patriots team that lost, I guess. They lost the Patriots. I mean, it's Dan Quinn's a solid coach and got the team up to play in that one year. They kind of, still had at that point Matt Ryan rolling at the height of his powers, so they were able to really lean on that with Dan Quinn's defense and Carroll's defense still being pretty functional at that time. And then you had the Kyle Shanahan factor that really put them over the top. That was the real X factor that really allowed them to do what they did that year and why they weren't able to sustain. Shanahan, I think, did a lot of that heavy lifting in that offense that year. CR, how you doing? Says hello from Germany. Having breakfast in a Hawks Nest dream. Can't get much better than that. Oh, wait. Huge Hawks news. I'm pleased with the new owner and curious for Hard Knocks and the BTS of this. Be interesting. And yes, sir, makes Hard Knocks even that much more, just kind of worth checking out potentially. Three guns deep. How much cap room do the Rams even have, especially after they pay Puka? Well, that'll be the question, I think, when you get down to after you pay Puka, because you're going to have to pay Puka. I can't think that they get through a whole year without, even if it's not just Puka, it's there's four guys right now that are due to be extended by the Rams. And Puka is the most expensive at $40 million per. And they don't have the same situation that we have with Jackson Smith and Jigba, where they can pump the money into the last, take the last 2 years of his rookie deal and then just pump all the new extension on top of it, including the guaranteed money. They're currently at $18 million are the Rams right now. So they're sitting on very little cap space. If you bring in Aaron Donald, I'm guessing it's going to be for, maybe not a, 30, 20 million per year, but you're going to spend some money on it, and they still got to get some extensions done. So they may have a way of finding a way. It's Steve Avila, it's Puka Nacua, it's Byron Young, and it's Kobe Turner. All guys that are due to be re-signed right now and extended. All guys that have earned that extension, truly earned it, not kind of earned it. They've earned it. And it's kind of been weird that they've not gotten even one done. You think they would, but they are kind of starting to roll low on where they're at cap wise. So it's getting tight. If they sign Puka, They signed Puka and Donald, for instance. It's going to take them down to like maybe a couple $1 million unless they're just burying all that money into void year, which they could do as well, right? The void year stuff also 3 guns deep makes this hard because you can do whatever you want with void year stuff. Hero power. Well, they're tied in the 80s. There was a show called Dallas. The main character, J.R. Ewing, would buy parts of competitor companies to ruin them. What if this guy has the same plan? Well, I would offer to you, Oiler Titan, that was also a fictional show taking place in a fictional world. So not a thing that people would do in the real world. People that make money and people that are entrepreneurs are people that do what they do because they're motivated usually to create successful businesses, organizations, to make money. When you're going out there and you're like, I'm going to go do this so that I can take things apart. I'm going to go do this so I can pull things down. It's not really the way that they usually tend to think mentality wise. As well, this guy's got a $14 billion net worth, according to what I've looked into, $13.7 billion. He's spending $10 billion on this. So other Titan, this isn't a guy like Elon where it's like, well, or even Baltimore, where you go, okay, you're worth $100 million. You're spending $10 million, but you still got $90 billion. This ain't gonna cause you to blink in the least. I go from 14 to 4. Yeah, I got 4 billion left, but I mean that's a pretty significant hit to take merely to come in there and sabotage one NFL team. That this is the key part here, Oiler Titan. It's not like you sabotage this one team and then that gets you to the championship. Your team that you want to the championship. You still have to get through all this other stuff. You could end up doing all of that and come to find that it made no difference in the grand scheme of things. It's just it's way over the top. And I think the fact that you have to kind of go to the fictional kind of story, as I've said earlier on the show, we don't have any real world examples of this. We don't. And that does kind of mean that, especially if you don't start to extend it outside of, well, there was a fishing boat, there's 2 Alaskan fisher boats, and there was one guy that bought Alaska fisher boat. Like we go to actually just football per se and like, show me the owner, as I said earlier, that's troll bot, that bought a team just to sort of kind of troll it. I don't think we've ever seen it. Not that it's not possible. The math doesn't quite add up on that one when you really go through it on that. Rams haven't paid Pookie yet, Megan. Those 4 have not been paid yet. And I was saying, to me, it was no coincidence when you had the OTAs and Rams. The Rams and the OTAs had both, I believe it was both Kobe Turner and Byron Young showed up with braces on their legs. Like both were like, yeah, we're not going to participate in this. And then the Rams were like, yeah, we're just going to turn off our OTAs. We're just going to like cancel them. And I was kind of wondering at that time, I was kind of like, like, are those guys already kind of going like, hey, we've earned the money. Why aren't we getting a contract done here? Why isn't this already on point? Like you look at a guy like Kobe Turner. How do you not look at him and say he's got to get an extension done right now? I mean, maybe you could look at Puka and you go off the field, rehab. But Avila, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, I mean, those guys have the hay's in the barn. They've done what other guys have done throughout the league during the payday. And I think the Rams are almost in a position as much as anything to not do it because you are up against the cap. You know they've deserved it, but you're also like, yeah, well, the structure of it will be all kind of foobarry. Let's just get through it one more year on it and then figure it out after that. CRB, by the way, did you see the yearly Seahawks series on YouTube? Before the Noise. As awesome as every year. Oh, they do a great job. They've done a great job. And yeah, I check them all out. The behind the thing that they're doing on behind the championship or whatever. Love the content the Seahawks channel produces. It's grade A stuff. Always very interesting and giving you a little bit of the peek behind the curtain. Really enjoy it. Yeah, it's good stuff. Very good stuff. Chad Wamball, thank you for the $5 donation, Chad. But is she going to up and move the team to California in the middle of the night? I'm still scared over that, laughing out loud. Hey, it's happened once, but when you've had a literal owner try to steal your team in the middle of the night, when you've literally had an owner do that and your fans had to run through the streets and hurl their literal bodies at the tires of the moving truck, carrying the Seahawks equipment away from the facilities that they said, no, you will run over me. You will butcher my bones. You will turn them into mush if you were to leave this town, if you were to take my team from me. It took that of us. It took our Seattleites, our brave men, our brave few, willing to dive into that abyss, willing to throw themselves at the tires of the moving truck and hoping that guy named Bruce there behind the wheel hadn't had a six-pack earlier in the morning, wasn't a little bit blurry-eyed, because it would have been ugly otherwise. But that's the part where I do say I don't think that this is a valid concern and worry that it's going to happen, Chad. I don't think that we've come down this pathway and this journey and this process and the Allen family with us to arrive all the way down here to get through all of this. You know, it's kind of like you've gone as the hero through the journey and you slayed the dragon and you slayed him again and you saved the princess. And hey, we got the trolls, get them with us too. You know, let's save those guys too. And then let's get the townspeople in here, get them all in there. And then you get right to the end. And then you hand the princess to the villain at the end and you just start stabbing the villagers. That's a little bit of what it would be like at this point to give and sell it to somebody who's going to move the team out of town. I just can't see it. But completely valid to have that fear, Chad. You're not out of pocket to not be worried about this because, folks, Mariners aren't the first baseball team in town. Seattle Pilots are the first baseball team in town. They're now the Milwaukee Brewers. Sonics stolen by Clay Bennett, who buys the team with the intense written purpose of stealing the team. He knew he wasn't getting a new stadium. He wanted to move the team. Ken Behring, as Chad's referencing here, stealing away the team in the middle of the night. The guy that was a California owner. A California guy. So, yeah, the worries and concerns and the PTSD are not out of pocket, Chad. Like we've earned these lashings. You know, we've earned the scars that we carry from these circumstances because we love this team. And you can't love the team and then tell me you're going to steal the team away in the middle of the night and then not ask me not to care. You can't then steal the team away from me in the middle of the night and then not expect it's going to kind of break the heart a little bit of somebody that grew up watching that team and rooting for that team and was invested in that team. But I just can't see it being this place where they get this far down this line, the Allen family in this way, the knights of the Allen family, and hand us over to the villain here at the last second for him to throw the princess over the cliff. I can't see it. But you never know, Chad. There's always a chance. Banker, thank you for the $2 donation. Are y'all sister teams with the 49ers now? Quest for 48. Kind of. It's a little incestuous. It's a little bit naughty. I don't know if it's full on sisterhood. There's a little bit too much fighting, hair pulling, gouging, nail scratching, helicopter punching. There's a little bit too much of that going on between the two teams for it to be a pure sisterhood, Banker. You know, I think that's a little bit too much of animosity. Maybe more like stepsisters. There's a movie that needs to be made. Stepsisters just too boring. Like that's what stepbrothers too should be. Stepsisters. Just two girls being catty at each other for 2 hours. Kind of, Banker. Kinda is the answer. Appreciate you, man. Mark Sanchez in the house. What's up, Mark? It's good to see you, brother. For those who didn't watch UFC, McGregor versus Holloway, it was over in 60 seconds. Conor blew out his knee with his first kick. All hype for that. Yeah, fighters are weird athletes to me. And I can't blame them because guys like Conor always have a paycheck that they can come back to. And, you know, you do have guys that have even been old fighters like George Foreman that came back and actually won a title after they had stepped away. But, you know, stepping away from sports is really not a thing. And we're talking about Aaron Donald doing this very same thing. But even Donald, it's like we're talking just 2 years ago. You know, with Conor, it's like you stepped away quite a while ago and you weren't at your best when you stepped away quite a while ago. You were already diminishing returns in what you're bringing to the table. And that, as an athlete, stepping away and then expecting your body's going to be able to you just come back and then you put your body right back together and it don't work that way. You got to maintain it. You let the body go. You learn this as you age. It's just like the body will entropy and all that stuff really takes place, that just nothing stays as solidly put together when you don't kind of keep the pace up, which is hard to do, of course, as you get older, especially if you've dealt with some injuries. So it's one of these things where these are really circus shows. He's coming out of retirement after 10, 12 years to 8 years. It's a circus, man, and it's, I think more of it speaks to Mark. Just the problem is right now in the fight game, be it, I think both with boxing and with UFC, is that there's just not a lot of like necessarily grade A cool fights to go watch. I mean, there's some very skillful fighters. They've never been more skillful than right now, but are they really epic fights we're watching? Are there really like people are like, you have to go back and check this fight out on YouTube. It was just unbelievable. Like this happened. Like, not really. Not really. And that's why guys like Connor still have such a draw even after they've been on the sport for so many years. That's why a guy like Mike Tyson come back tomorrow and be the biggest draw in boxing. It's because you guys haven't established anything star-wise. There just isn't any star power there. And if you're going to be a sport that's about the individuals and not about the team, you kind of need the star power. Feed Me, thank you for the $5 donation. I hope our new owner doesn't forget he owns 2 stadiums now since Levi Stadium is ours, and he owns 2 franchises since we own the Eagles. W decision. It's a win-win-win-win. Feed Me, that's what we call that one. A win-win-win and another win. And that's right. It's called Hawks House. It's not Levi's Stadium. That's a stupid name. It's called Hawks House. Whose house? Hawks House. Whose house? Hawks House. Hold on here. Where's my damn thing here? I'm going to have some fun with this today.
Whose house? Hawks House. Whose house?
Hawks House.
That's right. No more Levi Stadium. Sorry, Levi, your naming rights are done. Your money got blown. It's ours. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the 32 months. 32 months as a Hawks Nest member. Thank you for that. He says, B, did you add that under pressure soundbite to your soundboard? I haven't yet. I have not quite gotten to that, but my soundboard updates are one of the things on my notes. I'm going through right now just a list of off-season items, prepping thumbnails, reaching out to the Behind Me Lines guys, and I'm just kind of going down the line. But that is one of the things I need to get on there. I need that in Copacabana. Copacabana are the under pressure, and Copacabana are my 2 for my Rams contingents that I need to get prepped. Got to be careful on the sound bites with the music stuff, because that's the stuff that YouTube gets really tight on too, Mark. They get real. They're okay with like movie stuff, but man, music stuff, they just go. Jose Garcia, thank you for becoming a new member of the Hawks Nest. Welcome aboard. We're going to be getting a call-in show here for members of the channel, doing a call-in show as we do here once a month for you guys. We're going to be, I think, doing Monday night football this year. We had been doing Thursday night, but I think we're going to do Monday night football this year as we have show going on Thursday. It'll be the Seahawks Syndicate going on here this Thursday of the year. So look for those as well. We'll be getting out more content to you guys, the members of the channel. But Jose, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. Little Dallas Cowboys says, sup, Brandon? Thank you for the show. Cowboys question. Caleb Downs doesn't have Reese, style, or the Ohio defense. Has the Cowboys defense. I think he can be good by year 3. Also, Dak sucks. I love your commitment with the Dak thing, brother. I'm really high on Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs in a draft that was one of the weaker drafts we've seen in recent memory. And one of the drafts that had a lot of players that were, even when they were really talented, they'd be like Caleb Banks, where there was a lot of questions that were surrounding them beyond, just that didn't make them as clean a prospect for you taking them in the first round. And Caleb, you had the guy that could be the clean prospect for what you're taking in the first round. I think that why Caleb didn't go further, of course, came down to more 2 things beyond him being a really clean player. It came down that there was a little bit of the thing with the medical reports that we heard, which I don't know if there was a lot of validity to that or not, but there was a little bit of stuff about the knee. There were some worries there about degeneration. And then there's the drive, of course, for the Nicky Manwari thing or the Kyle Hamilton thing, where now if you're a safety, you have to do slot stuff. Now, if you're a safety, you've got to be over there in that. And that's where you have to live. And you got to be able to do that stuff too. You got to do both free safety, strong safety, and now you have to do the slot stuff. But if we watch Manwari, of course, that's not what he's really doing. And that's not what Hamilton's doing. It's very rare that those guys are ever going to be in a safety alignment. They're more slots than anything else. And what really needs to happen with Caleb is he needs to be the captain and center fielder of that defense and operate between free and strong safety, which he can do. He's great in the split safety stuff. It sounds like the Cowboys are trying to institute a very complicated defense, and that can work, but it is also one that if you're a young player trying to already kind of acclimate to the NFL, bringing on a complicated defense is not necessarily the easiest way to be able to acclimate faster. With that said, I still trust in my evaluation of him being a ready-made player. I don't think he's going to be a superstar in this league, but I think he's going to be hitting good top end quickly. So I would even say by year 2, he hits that top end, little Dallas Cowboy, but you're going to feel him on that defense, and you're going to feel his leadership, I think, on that defense. And that's something this Dallas team needs, I think, on top of, the talent's been needed on D. Sure. I think they've started to invigorate some of that. And I think now, they're kind of adding around the edges of that a little bit with a guy like Caleb. Now you got some actual, leadership. Now we got some guiding lights. But I like what the Cowboys have done defensively. There's a lot of solid parts here. That it's a fairly deep rotation on that line, and you got Clark out there with Quinn and Williams, which I think is a good combination. You got some young guys that got to come forward too. But, I like Ezaraku out of Boston College. He was really good for you guys before the injury last year. You got some young corners out there that could easily develop for you. Guys that, again, I was high on coming out of college. So to me, it's a defense that's, especially playing in a weaker division where I'm not trusting what the Commanders or the Giants are doing. And I think the Eagles are going to regress a little bit. I really like what Caleb can do that for that defense and for what he can do with that defense immediately. I don't think he's going to be like a difference maker, but I just think he's really, really good player and should be pretty instantaneously so for you guys, in my opinion. I will say too, it's as good as that Ohio State defense is, when it comes to Reese and Styles, those are really good players. Were those guys like Ruben Bain and the level of impact that you felt snap in and snap out from those guys on that Ohio State team? No. Like those were guys that it was as much about, look at the flash he shows you in that flash. Ooh, that is so impressive. And that's this. And then, okay, we got some dead plays here, got some bad plays. Oh, there's another flash over here. For those guys, it's really about, you've got to tap into the consistency factor of those guys as players. They haven't necessarily put on tape pure consistency across the board. In Reese's case, it's because he's being played all over the place and it just doesn't allow him to become an expert at any one given spot. In Styles' case, he's a former safety convert playing the linebacker position that acts like it. And the way that he takes on blocks and his run game instincts and his pathways to the ball carriers, so there's some kind of extra parts to that, I guess, a little bit there, Dallas Cowboy bit. But I like Caleb a lot. Little Dallas Cowboy says JJ is all about the money. He already reset the brand, and Switzer put Aikman in his place. I'm a fan of Barry. I don't know if Switzer put Aikman in his place or as much of Aikman put a bold spotlight on the problems of Switzer, little Dallas Cowboy. The documentary last year really put a clear item on this. I'd already seen a lot of it before the documentary came out last year, but what you had with Aikman was him used to a standard that Jimmy Johnson had put in place of how we were going to practice, how we we're going to go about our business, what it took to become a championship. And Switzer walked in there, inherited that. And the longer that Switzer was there with his style, the less that standard was kept and the worse the Cowboys became for it. So I don't think that he really put Aikman in his place. I don't think that at all. I think that Aikman was, pointing out correctly and smartly something that was problematic with the way that the team was performing and how much care was going on and how much they really did want to win. I don't disagree with you in that Jerry definitely has a big fundamental drive to have money be at the center of what he is that's basically the moon that orbits his planet. But I would say to you that I might say my opinion on that would be that there's multiple things that can be important to a man. And I think that more than the money, I think it's the credit. I think that Jerry Jones would rather not win a Super Bowl and be fully in control and fully in charge of what he's doing rather than win a Super Bowl and people think that he's just kind of there as the monetary head and the guy that's the business guy and that he's not anything to do with the football acumen of it. Him being the general manager, him being the shot caller, him being the guy that built the team purely. That's the most important thing to Jerry Jones. And I can prove it by the angle of they've had years they might have made money and they're doing well. They're going to make money no matter what they do. They're printing cash being the Dallas Cowboys. But Jerry has never once, little Dallas Cowboy in his time, since this Jimmy Johnson situation, never once willing to relinquish the control, which would then open him up to many more coaching possibilities when he's trying to go out there and look for a good coach. That's why you have to settle for a Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer's not the number one guy they would pick if they could just pick anybody, but because nobody wants to go there because they know Jerry Jones is going to be the general manager, you got to pick from whoever's just going to take the job at that point, which then kind of inhibits you of building a winner vis-a-vis with it. So I don't disagree. I think money's definitely important to him, but I do think being the guy in control is even a little more important to him. Jeff says, I remember when they fired Pete and a lot of Seahawks fans were seeing doom and gloom. Yeah, that's true. I can definitely attest to that. You never know how the future is going to bear out. That's the part where we got to just kind of sometimes, much as it's not fun, we always want to prognosticate, but sometimes you just got to wait and see. Brandon, do you know any good dad jokes with a Chris Watt? I don't. Not off the top of my head right now. You caught me late in the day, my man. But I'll try to come up with one tomorrow, maybe. See if I can look one up. Yeah. Here, I'll do one for you. Let's do it. How do you catch a squirrel, climb a tree, and act like a nut? Did you hear about the guy who invented lifesavers? They said he meant a mint. I told my wife she should embrace her mistakes. She gave me a hug. Why don't eggs tell jokes? They might crack up. CRB chat, random question. Do you guys know the beverage Spezi? I do not. I never heard that. Spezi. Drink Spezi. Boy, it's not a name that rolls off the tongue, I'll tell you that. Megan may not be around tomorrow. We're going to play Lurcano. No worries, Megan. We're going to go deep tomorrow. Maze Guru, Hawksnest, I still want to know if you've been to the beach yet. Getting some sun on that pasty ass. I have been a little bit. Yeah. I've been kind of trying to get some work done too that just hopefully making the season a little easier just by getting the prep stuff in advance kind of set. But yeah, I've been enjoying having a little bit of time off, just getting out in the sun in general, man. I've been just out there walking and just enjoying that, you know. Randy Crates, this is effing awesome. They are not limelight types. They're highly intelligent and have been successful in just about everything they've ever touched. Let's effing go. Hey, how about that? Randy's stoked. Randy, you're hyping me up, man. Love it. Like that part of it, man. That does definitely lends itself well to the people that will kind of be the hands off, because we got plenty of examples of too many owners that are too hands on. Jerry being one of them. A lot of perilous organizations on the back of that. Bubba Yaga, Brando. What's up, Brando? Hopefully old boy starts spending cash like the Eagles. F them picks too. We'll see. We shall see, my man. For Titans, I used to be a Cowboy fan for Oiler and Titan fan, but I'd be furious if shareholders of Eagles, Redskins, or Giants purchased the Cowboys. Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal. Banker says, Brando, if you're the 49ers, do you double Garrett or Donald? I would be swinging the double. I mean, it's obviously, let's operate from the standpoint that Garrett's still playing around. Like, we're looking at the tape and Garrett's still operating around the same area he was operating before, that's not like diminished. I would be swinging more of my center his direction, and I would be spending more of the game. You tend to want to double team the nose tackle throughout the game, Banker, on the defensive line, right? You have your 5 offensive linemen for the 4 defensive linemen. The 2 that tend to block to the 1 are your right guard, and your center tend to block to the strong side, 1 tech, the big boy. I would have my right guard throughout the course of the game. You're on the island one-on-one. Now I angle my center over to the guard to help out on Donald. I can still then get the chip. I can get the chip and release on Garrett on top of that. So I can still, I don't have to choose the one or the other where it's like the double either goes Garrett or it goes to Donald. I can double Donald pure. I can chip Garrett. And then having the good tackles that we do on the edge, I can get by on that without having my whole game plan upended, especially with how much we run the ball, especially with how much play action we run out of our passing attack. So that'd be how I would run it. From the Niners perspective, I would be similar in that way. I guess instead of it being that the tight end that chips and release, it's going to be Kyle Juszczyk that probably chips and releases. And then you still run the double to Donald's direction. So it's still the same kind of conceptually speaking. It's just the difference of instead of it being with us in 12 personnel and it being a tight end that's chipping Garrett, it's now Juszczyk trying to come down there and help out a little bit on that one. But you've got to put some substantial double teams on both, which makes them hard to deal with, which makes you guys hard to deal with. I definitely think we're not going to let those guys wreck the game. Like we'll more have singled up a Kobe Turner, we'll more have singled up a Byron Young, and then they might wreck the game. They might have one of those games they're capable of doing it at that point, Banker, aren't they? But that's where you got to take your risk somewhere. And that's the risk I think you're more readily willing to take. Yeah, extremely random question. I like random questions. That's what we're all about here, Rams House. Appreciate it, man. It's an interesting team, man, but it was one that was kind of a flash in the pan team. They kind of had their kind of one-off on that. They didn't sustain around it on either end. It's really Shanahan's, to me, presence of coming in there and what he was able to do that gave them what they kind of got there through that year. Not that Quinn didn't do his part or that, there wasn't some other extra parts, but. Roy Stansel says, hey, B, what does Walker think about this? Also, would it be funnier than hell if it was Russ buying in with Bronco cash? I don't know. What's the thing? At first, I was excited. Balmer, Elon, we could have Wi-Fi in the field, high speed, all the time. Now I'm hearing as a Niner fan buying the team. Why would you do that? Why would you want that? I don't know. It makes no sense. And now Russ coming back in, like you say, Roy, with his Bronco money, let's ride back to Seattle. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Watkins still trying to figure it out, really. CR says, can we get Bobby just for the day so I can get order an alternate jersey from him? Couldn't get my hands on it the first time. Oh. How you doing, Trap Cat? Kogan says, why didn't I get the notification on the stream? Strange. I had to create it late minute because it was kind of a breaking news item. I had to just kind of put it all together in the fly. It has to, with YouTube, you got to put the shows together 24 hours in advance for the notifications to pop up. And if you just kind of do a show on the fly, YouTube kind of has a struggle with that one. John Paul Bacon, how you doing? It's good to see you in the chat. Connor blew his ACL in 2 seconds. I've never seen a card fall off harder. Coke and half pound sale. Love to hear it, man. Yeah, he only owns 3.1%. He'll be able to sell that easy enough, Michael. It won't be an inhibiting part. 3 guns deep, Kobe Turner. I forgot that guy's going to be big bucks. He's probably going to be looking at 20. Yeah. 20 is kind of the floor, 3 guns deep. So this would be the salaries. Think about this, folks, what you saw. You saw the Rams with $18 million of cap space. You know that they're going to sign Darnold for not, it ain't going to be cheap. It ain't going to maybe cost the $30 million per it was costing before he left, but it ain't going to be for the vet minimum. I guarantee you that. And so you got 18 million. You got 40 million going to Puka. You got 27.5 million right now due to Byron Young. Yes, 27.5 million due to Byron Young. If Boye Mafe for 2 sacks a year can get 20 million per year, Byron Young getting 12 sacks a year, playing good run defense isn't going to get 27. Then you got to spend probably a little over 20 on Kobe Turner, but let's just call it 20 to try to be conservative. And then you got to spend $15 million on Steve Avila. You only got 18 million in cap space and you're bringing back Darnold. Somebody's going to have to, either you come to all of them and you're like, hey guys, swallow the bitter pill. Nobody's getting paid until next offseason. Suck it. Players don't tend to swallow that, but I mean, they could try that, I guess. But all of these guys, you tell me, I mean, I haven't had a Ram fan come in here yet who's pushed back on this. All of those guys have deserved an extension. The only thing you can do with Puka is say, well, you had to go to rehab and you were biting women this offseason and there's no way we're going to pay you when you're doing that. And you could maybe have a leg to stand on, but what do you tell Kobe? What do you tell Byron? What do you tell Steve Avila? You've been great. You've been the perfect soldier. You're out there every week. You're a warrior. You're putting in the work. You're putting in the time. You're continually improving as a player. You're a linchpin of this team, foundational. But we just, the money's tight right now, man. We're in the go for him. We had to go for and get Garrett, man. We had to pay money for Garrett. Trap Cat laughing out. I think people need to get over this whole owner has minority stake with the Niners. The guy only bought his stake last year. I believe he's a fan of football and loves West Coast. I agree. Koga says, Niner fans, now we literally own the Seahawks. S pisses me off. Sorry for my language. Oh, you knew they were going to say something. Ron's low chance Bruce didn't have a 6-pack, only happens once. Megan says, cracking not the first hockey team in Seattle either, B. There you go. They always want to take our stuff. Why you guys got to take our stuff? Aren't you happy with your stuff? Why you got to come and grab our stuff? You got to come all the way up to the Northwest to get it. Leave our stuff alone. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some announcement about looking towards when the stadium stuff's going to come. I don't think it's going to be immediate, but I do think that was a part of the sale that was impactful, and that the new owners are, all of them across the board, kind of looking at, okay, how are we going to navigate the waters to the next stadium when that does need to occur? It doesn't need to happen right now. And yes, there's plenty of life left in Lumen Field, but knowing how long stadiums tend to last, knowing the turnaround time, knowing, that if you're going to own the team for 30 years, as Paul Allen did, you're going to have to cross this bridge at some point. So you got to think about it and know and have a plan for how you're going to get that, accomplished. CRB, did you do the homework I gave you and finally check the German Seahawkers roster builder? I'm getting mad if you use the spreadsheets again. I am going to use your Seahawker. I have not had a chance, man. I'm really sorry. This last month has been a bit tough. I got a lot more busier than I thought, and I kind of got into just, I'm just trying to kind of catch my breath here a little bit in this off season because the season's going to be insanely busy. Every year we're picking up more shows and whatnot. So I've been just trying to kind of pace myself a little bit this off season because of how much it's going to get so harrowing a little bit as we get into the year. We got, or as it is right now, just 7 shows a week planned, and it's going to probably expand beyond that. But I will get to it, man. I got it on my notes, so I promise I will. Especially as we get to the roster projections. Glad DK's in the closet replace. DK's going to come back, man. I'm going to get him back here. He won't replace JSN, but we got to give him another backdrop. Yeah, I don't think we need a new stadium either. Renovation would be cool if they could find that as a middle ground. Duran says we're like the big dick brother of the Niners. I got to think Jody's probably got to have the potential of moving the team CR factor into this sale, you would think. You never know, but you would think. Mega the Hawks Nest, is this the part where I tell you that before I saw the light and became a 12, I was a Niner fan due to growing up in the 80s and only seeing the Super Bowls during the Niners run? No, it's kind of like it's the growing process of being a human. You know, you're a child, you go through your adolescence and you're sort of flirting with being a Niner fan, and then you become an adult. And like all good adults at that point, become a Seahawks fan, realizing what you really should be rooting for. I think it's kind of a natural evolution of life, circle of life, really. Circle of fandom. Well, they're tied. Cardinals are never getting this division. They are never winning this division. John says no room downtown Seattle for a new stadium, they say, but I do remember seeing 30% of the Seattle downtown office space is empty. Yeah, and I mean, they could always go back and take the model they did before where it's just, you just put them in Husky Stadium for a couple of years and then you move them back. You tear down the stadium, build the new, and then move them back to the same location. Kind of an easy peasy one to go at there too. Froze's the Hawks just had their biggest distraction solved. Time to go win another Super Bowl. Let's go, man. Royce says the new owner is really smart because by owning the Hawks, he now owns the Niners. You guys are on fire tonight. Oh, I love it. Feeling pretty good about it. I mean, you know, overall good. Are you going to address the Terry and Arnold issue? Reportedly, Seattle had reached out to his people. I mean, John's in on every deal, as he likes to say, and I think that this is a representation of that. I don't think it means necessarily that there's something en route to where a signing is coming down the line and it's only a matter of time and like you're going to push hard for this guy. I think you're just looking at it as, does a market opportunity present itself? We can afford to certainly do this if we've got to sort of sit on him. But I don't think it means anything's going to necessarily happen. I think too, John's whole thing has been don't lay your hands on women. And I know what Terrian's accused of doing is not good, but I don't think that there's been anything included that's been in that. So would not be then a no-go territory for John to potentially go after him. So just part of John's DNA is to have a bit of a pulse check on everything that's going on around there. This team was interested in Terry and Arnold during the draft time, as far as, you know, him being a potential, the guy that they take there, especially if I think they had moved back, you know, if they had gone back to 24, 25, I think they would have probably jumped on a guy like Terry at that point. So knowing that interest that exists already as far as a baseline goes, it makes sense, but I don't expect anything to happen. And even if you do sign him, there's going to be some probably pretty healthy suspension that's going to come into be on this situation to offset what he can bring. You know, it's kind of like you grab him, hopefully he comes back some point next year or something, you know. Jeez, kitty. D Nugget, I like that the new owner has a young son. If they're good and committed, we could have a stable ownership for a long time. Very good. So well said, man. Yeah. It's where guy's 71, but if he does pass now, this seems to be the way that this would go and easily set up with the son coming in to, help as he's going to help to come and be a part of the process as he is. Trap Cat, that Arnold issue, I think, isn't really an issue when it comes to laughing out loud. Very doubtful. Got to say, though, some crazy way we did to get them, he'd have to at least positive influence around him coming here. Well, he's going to be fighting for his NFL life wherever he's going to go. And you're going to have a very highly motivated Terry and Arnold, I would think, at that point. But we'll see how the situation goes there. Brian broke down the sale earlier today. He was from the tech industry, and with his limited knowledge, he was feeling positive. Yeah, hey, didn't work out too bad for us having Paul Allen with his tech history coming into this, did it? So lightning struck once here, why can't it again? In the same fashion. Gunny says, as long as Jerry Decrepit Fingers Jones is the owner, the Cowboys aren't winning any championship anytime soon. That's true. Jesus says, Cowboys are still 3 pieces away on defense. I feel you. I totally understand that. I'm not trying to say I feel like the Cowboys are going to be a championship contender necessarily, but I do like the way they navigated from Micah to this. I thought that, if you checked with me on that Micah trade, I was like, you guys waited too long on this, but I do like how they've kind of moved around with the pieces of that trade and how they've kind of built this up. They've still got to do more than just stick the landing here. But there's some interesting points in what they're doing. And they do still have some, draft capital to work off of here too. Two defensive ends, one linebacker away. I mean, they've done a relatively good job building the edge up. So they're sitting on, they brought in Rashawn Gary, James Houston still there. LT Overton will be a run stuffing edge they can bring on early downs there, so they can let guys like Gary and Houston just go crazy on passing downs. As a Raku, they drafted Malachi Lawrence, Sam Williams. I mean, they need one of those 3 guys to develop. I'd give you that. Like, that needs to happen. I do think to the linebacker position, the Marion Overshawn needs to, tap into the potential that he's flashed. And D Winters is not anything special for you over at the will linebacker position at all. So, I mean, there's definitely stuff that still needs to be cemented down with that defense. But I don't know. I don't mind I think the edge group can be good enough. I am kind of anticipating that, you're going to get something out of Ezaraku and Lawrence, and whether they're real stars, that they're going to give you some valuable pieces to the D. Although this Dallas Cowboy, I think Scataboom and Maui will do damage for New York Giants. Jetty 5 for Wash, if healthy, will do well. Thank you, Brandon, for the feedback. Anytime, Dallas Cowboy. Always appreciate your perspective as well, bro. Scatabo, it's just about, can you stay healthy with that running style in the NFL? Because he's not a Marshawn Lynch 230-pound guy. He's more of a 205, 210-pound guy trying to run like that. It's hard to do so when you're not quite bringing the beef that you need to be to kind of run that way. But Maui Noah is great, man. And I think a pretty safe tackle, prospect out of this last draft. So did they get Maui Noah? I didn't think they got. That's not right, is it? You might be meaning a different Maui. Yeah, Reese. Oh, they did get Maui Noah. Yeah, they have the 2 first-round picks. Yeah, Maui Noah's nice. Colton Hood was a good pick for them in the second round too. Giants had a pretty solid draft, other than the fact that they're grabbing an endless array of edges, and you can only play 2 edges at one time. He did. Side videos that aren't edited show Barry was like, what? Aikman just walked away. Yeah, I mean, I more than, and I think that there was some definite shots where you could feel the frustration of Aikman. I look at it as more of that I'm trying to take away from that in itself as more of what we've heard of the Cowboy organization at that time, Cowboy being that there was definitely a pretty good understanding that, and this covered this in the documentary, that Barry Switzer had his way of not being as hands-on and not being as detail-driven and not being as like, he's a player's coach and you're going from one end of the spectrum to the other. And that's okay. The other end of the spectrum can work. Player-friendly coaches, we added here in Coach Carroll, that can work. But Coach Carroll came in here and created that culture, created that environment, created that atmosphere, built it from the ground up. When you come in and you inherit an atmosphere that's more built upon the old traditions of NFL and the hardline coaches that'll chew your ass and get after it, it's then going to not work as well. The team's not been built to be like that. The team's not set up to handle it and deal with that. Those players being given that much freedom, as we saw with like the White House creation, was a problem and did not work out well. So I think that there's the back and forth that exists that just isn't the good show of the body language in the moment that existed between the two men. But beyond that, it's all the stories we hear about. It's them recounting their outlook of it in the past and talking about it now. I think you get a very clear picture of what was going on. And Switzer was a great coach in college and he won a championship in the pros. But I would say that Jimmy Johnson was a phenomenally better coach, and that the way that Jimmy Johnson was doing it, if Jimmy Johnson had just remained with the Cowboys, little Dallas Cowboy, I mean, this is the part that kind of upends your whole argument. And I think even Jerry Jones has said this, or others have said this around the Cowboy organization beyond just Aikman. Guys like Emmett Smith and the playmaker, they've all said this, which is that if Jimmy Johnson had remained, they would have won 5 championships. And that in itself is an indicator there that the moving off that guard and the changing of that, and that was all about ego. You didn't move off Jimmy Johnson because he's a bad coach. You did so because you wanted more credit. I mean, that documentary succinctly showed that to the nth degree, in my opinion. But we all take away, different stuff from it. Jay Melfair stoked. Glad to hear, Jay. Mike says, I just joined the stream. No idea if this was mentioned or asked, but do you think Seahawks being on Hard Knocks had anything to do with this sale taking place so quickly after the initial bid? No, I don't. I think what's happened with this is that Jody tried to kind of push this out, Mike, as long as she could in the process of the sale. The Seahawks were fined $5 million last year because they were not executing the trust and getting the sale done. Jody was kind of, for lack of a better word, dragging her feet a little bit, Mike, and getting the final sale swung. And so they had kind of held off as long as they could. You think about Allen passed in like 17. And the whole thing with the trust is that you're supposed to sell this thing basically immediately. Everything gets liquidated when he passes. So I think they pushed this off as far as they could with this. And this was the time that it had to kind of take place. And the NFL with the fines last year was suddenly putting some of that pressure on in the background. Scott's with me. Says, I just think Jody had intensive background check on all ownership bids. And if it passed, her checks. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that there's been nothing about this Seahawks process from bringing on a new head coach and moving off of Russell Wilson and anything that they've done, bringing on coordinators. Everything has been a very exhaustive process. And why would this be any different over the last couple of years? Totally agree, Scott. Gunny says, remember in 2020 draft when Jerry Jones was in his yacht like some James Bond villain? Pepperidge Farms remembers. John says, I really dislike Aikman as an announcer when he comments on a football game. I make it a point to turn it off. I get that. He definitely caused a lot of just derision out there from some folks. Some really like him. He doesn't seem to be kind of a middle ground kind of announcer for folks. Where it's like, he's all right. Well, folks are either kind of like a love him or hate him thing. No worries, Megan. We'll see you. We'll catch you around the other side. Trapcast says, don't forget to say Bud Light tastes great, Mr. Watt. It tastes really well. Good. Yes. I sip on it often. Thank you, Budweiser, for the sponsorship. How does Moses make his coffee? He brews it. Get it? He brews it. We can't start the dad joke. Yeah, the dad joke. We gotta back the dad jokes tonight. I'm at that age. I go long. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you. Says Randy Jr. and I just got done fishing. Probably won't be able to listen. Change is inevitable. I think he's going to keep to business as usual. Go Hawks. Well, thank you for the donation, Randall. And this is the way that it does go. You get 30 years of ownership with one single guy. That's a pretty good run. We got, 10 years of Nordstrom, and we got like 10 years of Bearing About. So to get this long period of time, we've been really, truly blessed, especially with an owner who is as committed to building a winner as Paul was. And hopefully the next one will be in that way. But well said in your spot from your perspective on this. Just it is part of the cycle of NFL organizations. And hopefully he just takes over and keeps this thing rolling in the same direction at the same speed it's been running, and understands that he doesn't have to do a whole lot new or different to make this thing a success. How can he not see it that way coming off a championship? And we'll see. We'll see. That's the part of this is going to be fun, Rand, is we're going to get to learn about what kind of owner he is and how he will be different or how he'll be much of the same. I said, Brandon, you sure give everyone their money's worth when you do a podcast. I love what I get to do, man. 3 guns deep. It's a good life getting into what I do. I could be up grinding every day on a job I absolutely hate. Instead, I get to talk football with y'all with my cat in my lap, talking about new owners with the season about a week away. It's not bad. It's not bad. Gunny says, unpopular opinion. I'm glad Russell Wilson isn't the owner because of the feuds he had with John Schneider before getting traded. I'll always love Russ, but he seems like he'll be too controlling. Definitely would be interested to see what kind of owner Russ would be, to your point. I think that there's definitely some potential concerns that, to your point, there you could have with Russ on that, with a little bit of that. It still is a possibility, Gunny. There is a player associated with this thing that's a part of the process. So who that player is, who's got the money to be a part of the ownership group, we'll come to see. But it may still yet be, Gunny, that is Russ is part of that group. Or that player part of the group. Sorry, let me say it right. Dallas Cowboy Brandon, how do you think Arch or Sorsby would do with the Dallas offense? Sorry for the constant Cowboy questions. Darnold's the best. No, man, I always open all questions here, man. You can always ask any. I have right now a 2nd round grade on Arch Manning that can raise up to a 1st round grade if he can build upon the performance of what he put on tape last year, his first year as a starter. I think Sorsby would have been a 2nd round graded player without the gambling stuff. I've put him as a 4th round graded guy now because, yes, the gambling stuff, but then also because he's not going to play a final year of college football. So you're going to have to kind of draft him on sort of the hope that there's been no aggression and not being on a football field and that he can continue to then build under your program. So I would put a 4th round grade. There are some similarities with Arch and Sorsby. I think that Arch has got a little bit more accuracy. I think he's a little bit more technically clean. I think he's got a little bit more awareness in the pocket and moving around and dealing with pressure and just having a feel for things. But Sorsby might have some more better raw goods. Sorsby might have just even a little bit more speed. Sorsby might have a little bit more of the RPMs on his fastball. Both could run Schottenheimer's offense. Probably Arch is the better fit because there's a little bit of a distribution factor with Schottenheimer's offense that I think would lend well to Manning. I think with Sorsby, he's probably a guy that's a little bit more on going to a place that's going to be very much a run-driven offense, working off the play action, get him under center clean, let him operate from an offense where he doesn't have to necessarily be hyper volume metric in his approach. But I think you could do the opposite of the Arch where there's a little bit more of a volume of approach on the passing attempts. You can do a little bit more of the Dak stuff within the offense. But they can both do it, I think. Megan, I told you it wasn't going to be Ballmer or Bezos. You did indeed. Well called on your part. Tough for Connor there, yes, sir. New owner, new uniform. We are due for new uniforms. It's about the time frame where we would do a reset. So you never know. Simogen. Oh, as Brandon talked about the 7 and 10 from nobody, like everyone hated us last year and gave us the same ranking, laughing out loud. Yeah, it's a strange one from Bucky Brooks. And I don't think that his appearance on the Brock and Salk show necessarily illuminated his outlook on this in a way that made you go, oh, I see where he's coming from. And that makes a lot of sense, Simogen. It was more of, well, your opinion seems to be flippantly based, which is unusual for you, Bucky. You tend to have a lot more of depth to your opinions. And it also seems to be a bit, as I've said, where, him drinking the Kool-Aid as a guy that's living in LA. And I don't want to think that with him in this situation, but it reeks of that to me, Simogen. I just did. It was one that I think he gave sort of tacit thought to. He just kind of was like, he sort of penciled out the records and then he just kind of went on to the next thing. And those guys are busy and they got a lot at their tables. So it's, you're not going to spend always the extra time to try to break stuff down. But I didn't find his analysis on that to be very deep. Ooh, Brian coming in with a $20 donation. Thank you for that, Brian. You're the man. Appreciate you for that, brother. It's good to see you in the house too. Be off topic, but how do you think the addition of ex-Ravens defensive coordinator as new inside linebacker will help the Seahawks D? Go Hawks. Well, I think that he's truly a guy that is a mind meld guy with Mike, that those guys were in lockstep in Baltimore and that Mike would have really loved to have gotten him on his staff, and that Baltimore, knowing what they were already going to kind of lose with Mike as it was trying to, keep as much as they could of that, in-house. And so he probably got into that position as far as DC, put there a little bit prematurely and not quite, really ready to go with that in that way. But now he gets to come back with Mike and just add to the brain trust and just give him another set of eyes that is going to look at the defense the way he wants and the way he looks at the defense. And these guys are that locked up. So it's a wonderful hire. He's going to be a fantastic addition. And, Lord knows over the next couple of years, we're likely to, if we continue to have these great success, see this drain of coaching talent leave the city to go and on to better and bigger things. And that we need to as much build out this inflow of coaches that can kind of step on up if they need to. If a Dirty goes next year, you have your DC in waiting at that point. You don't have to go out there and like you did with Kubiak, go find that guy in the market. You've got your ready-made candidate right here. So I like that. It's good thing to have. Reinforced insurance is always nice, Brian, in that way. And he's got great familiarity with his defense. It's a defense with a lot of different details, a lot of different individualistic things that the defensive line, the linebackers, and the back end are doing. And they all have to work in tandem, but they're all doing different things. And that you have a variety of different tasks, roles, responsibilities. You can end up in post-snap, number one. But just number two, and how it all has to inner work so that it all is in alignment. You need as many detailed guys as you can on that, because it's not just a simplified defense at that point. It's not just hey, just line it up and let it rip. It's, hey, we got to be on every little detail of this to make this run right. So having another expert in the room and to run this type of defense, Brian, is a great thing. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's an underrated part that's being added onto this defense that hasn't been talked about a lot this offseason. And what you're able to add to this. Because I did feel like with Mike, when he brought on and put together his crew here in Seattle initially, it was a lot of kind of cobbling together. Not that had to be a bad thing. I mean, Carl Scott has proven to be a really good coach that he inherited from Coach Carroll, and then bringing Dirty in from the Dallas Cowboys. So these have proved to be really good additions, but it doesn't mean that he couldn't stand to have a little bit of the known factor too back in the building either. You're awesome, Brian. Thank you for the $20 donation. I don't think it'll mean anything different as far as, how this defense runs structurally. I don't think it'll mean like, well, now they're going to blitz a lot more, or, now you're going to play a lot more man coverage. It's just a much of this defense is really about not read and react on the field as far as in play, but read and react coaching wise to what they're seeing from the offense. We can deal with any offense in the sport, and then we can customize a defensive approach to attack that offense where they're weak and to minimize where they're strong. So I need as many sets of eyes to be able to ascertain what the strengths and what those weaknesses truly are so that we can laser beam in on them. And this guy gives you that guy to do that. Appreciate you, Brian. Thank you for the $20 drop. Somebody says, across the board, we were to be under the baseball team, and yet we did even better than I would ever hope for. We got the same crap now. It's kind of sad. I'm not sure if I know what you mean on that one. Is that in reference to Bucky? Jack says, who's Bucky Brooks? The guy who played 5 years in the NFL for 5 teams? That loser. I think he's a former Seahawks scout, though. But yes, that one. Kendrick says, Brandon Bayuk is the gift that keeps on giving. I feel Puka might be slowly following in his footsteps. Has a bitter contractual battle, comes back, gets, the script. It's weird. Yeah, it is weird with some of these receivers this way, and both situations feel a little bit uncertain. I don't know what the 49ers are doing. I've maintained through this whole point. I don't get it. I was listening to one Niner content creator the other day was like, doesn't cost them anything to just hold on to him. It's like, yeah, it does. It's drama and useless stuff that doesn't help your team. What's the point of holding on to him? What you're showing him? It's, needless drama. There's plenty of drama that's going to be at play on a football team throughout the course of a season and off season. Don't allow for the needless stuff to bleed in when you can have control of that. Jason says, didn't the last out-of-states person to buy a Seattle sports team move the team? They did, yeah. But I think that there's some other factors at play that make this a little bit different. And I think especially when you consider the difference between a Howard Schultz and a Jody Allen. I think with Howard, I think it became a little bit about, let me maximize the returns I can get for selling this team at this point. And I don't care who I sell it to. I don't think he was discerning in the least. I think with Jody, I think she's going to be on the other end of that spectrum here during the sale process. And it's one where, Jason, this is a thing where if she inherited and she didn't care about this team and she hadn't been about winning and she hadn't been about trying to preserve what Paul had done throughout his 20 years in owning the team, then maybe the thought process that she could just flip us to anybody could be a potential reality. But the fact that she has preserved it, that she has carried that torch, that she's now going to extinguish that torch here at the finish line of selling the team does not fit to form with her behavior in the prior. Will Dallas Cowboy leave our stuff alone? What if I find a sweet Asian girl that I cannot resist? Well, there's always exceptions to the rules. It's a general rule of thumb. It's a guidance, really, more than a rule. Synergy says, because no one cares about the Northwest, we are so distant. I don't think many get that we are thousands of miles away from the next teams. California gets a break, but we are the next big, small market. It's true. Yeah, Brian, Lumen definitely has become iconic. Abdi Prime question, brother Brandon, with us finally having a new owner, are we done with the 3-year contract BS? Or are we finally going back to the 4-year deals with our players? We'll see. I mean, when you look at like the Jackson Smith and Jigba extension, that's an extension that's basically for 5 years, 6 years or something. I think you strapped on the 4. I think it was a double check on this. Yeah, you signed a 4-year contract in 2026. And not only is it a 4-year contract, Abdi, you put that 4-year contract on top of the 2 remaining years that are on his rookie deal. So he's under contract for 6 years. essentially, and how it's set up right now. So, I mean, they were already doing this deal before. And let's remember this with the Jackson deal. This is essentially like the biggest contract you've given out to a non-quarterback in Seahawks history. So it's not some small contract you're giving out those extra years to. I don't know if the 3-year contract thing was as much about trying to keep the money clean on the books into the far future. I think some of it was with John reacting to what he was dealing with there, where there was a year in and year out period there, Abdi, where you were eating a lot of dead money, and you're eating dead money on deals where you had kind of given out that extra year. And you go, yeah, part of one of the benefits of doing the 3-year deal too is that if it's a bad deal, I can get out from under it quickly and then move on. If it gets into that fourth year of bonus year, now that all the bonus kind of speeds up, it's not as easy to get out from under those kind of deals. So it's a little bit about having, I think John was valuing flexibility if I was getting down to flexibility of team rather than getting hardwired into having everything locked into play. That there's a bit of, I think, value from John's perspective in keeping guys on the 3-year deal. And then maybe there's a hungry factor versus the 4th year, et cetera. But the Jackson deal was a 4-year extension. Brian, what's wrong with keeping Lumen right where it's at? Just do some upgrades. If it's good enough for Lambeau, it's good enough for Lumen. I'd love to see that, Brian. Absolutely love to see it. It's luxury boxes. And can you build the luxuries on what's already in there? Is that possible? Oh, no, it's not possible where I need the extra luxury boxes. Oh, well, we got a great new stadium. So I like you. I would think that you could do it with those upgrades. I would love to see the stadium have more seats put into it. Let's include some more seats because we can more seats theoretically maybe lower down some of the cost of the tickets. I'd love to see some of that. Throw your luxury boxes in with it if you need to. Feels like there's plenty of room there to add on. I'm with you. But owners tend to want the fresh new thing, Abby, that Arnold news got debunked quick. It was only to check up on him and talk to his lawyer. Yeah, so it confirms what I'm saying. Like John's going to talk, but just that they've called it in check doesn't mean that there's a contract en route, right? But John's in on everything. So when you hear Seahawks connected all the time to these players, it's not just a tacit connection, and it's what you want your general manager to do. It doesn't just because you make the call, you pick up the phone, you say, hey, what's going on with it? Doesn't mean you're going to do it, but you want to know the details. What's the cost going to be? What's the situation at? What's the likelihood of the way that this is going to play out so that we can make an informed decision? I love that about John. Samson, I'm late. Is this a good call or a bad call? I can't tell. Well, it's good from the standpoint of that this guy doesn't seem to be a drama-laden tool shed. He doesn't seem to be a guy that's not got barely enough money to buy the team, that he'll have the purse strings to be able to spend what he needs to spend. But we're going to have to just kind of wait and see with time on this one, Samoan. You never know until you get to where things are real live and then, okay, you're the owner and let's see what happens now. Each owner is kind of unique and different to themselves. Roy B, keep up the good work. For me, you're the voice I hear when I think of the Hawks. Well, thank you for that, Roy. That is very kind of you to say, man. Appreciate you rocking with me for all these years. It's good to see you in the house too. Very kind of you. Do you remember Jack Snow? I don't remember Jack Snow. Yeah, I can't see Arnold being a guy that they wouldn't. I can see them pick up the phone, but again, I think he's going to be on a pretty lengthy suspension and see what happens with him. Brando, it's okay, Meg. I grew up a Cowgirl fan because I'm a Dallas. Shaking my head. Well, it's both the Niners and Cowboy fandoms. That's a little bit of that evolutionary process. You're in your adolescence. You don't know no better. Everybody's experimenting a little bit. Maybe I want to be a Cowboy fan. Let me experiment with this. Ooh, that feels gross. No, no, I don't want to do that anymore. Mike won't want him. Too much drama. Yeah, Abdi, I'm not big on bringing Arnold in either. I can understand making a quick call though, but I think you just come down. We don't need this. Very poor decision on his part. Kendrick Brandon, last year's Super Bowl run couldn't have been written better if it was a scriptwriter. How do you top last year's run? I mean, I don't know if you can. The only epic thing can be it's just that we get an even more epic fights with the Rams at the end of the season, and it becomes even more wilder games than we had last year. But like you say, I mean, it was every step of the way was so wild. Winning the division twice, Darnold overcoming his demons, playing the Rams multiple times so quickly back to back as we had to do. The Niners back to back, getting to take down the Patriots in revenge for what happened 10 years ago. I mean, that was, like you say, it was a scriptwriter couldn't have written it. You wouldn't have believed it as a story. If I wrote that as a story prior to last year's season, hey guys, this is the way this year's going to go. I would have eyes rolling at me in the chat. I don't know if you can top it. You can win a Super Bowl championship, but I don't know if it'll be a better story, pure story of what last year was. Roy, hey B, I feel like this purchase is a gift with training wheels for the son. What are your thoughts? Yeah, it might be a little bit. I mean, he's 71. He's getting up there. You are thinking about your future at that point. How can you not? His son's going to be an active part of this team and the leadership process of it. So, 1 + 1 does kind of equal a little bit of 2 here. And that makes sense. And maybe he sensed that this is a very big passion of his son. Maybe his son's not as much into microprocessors and would like to, get into this. And, why not? And they've got some other endeavors they're into as well. So it's not like there isn't some other things they got as far as irons in the fire in other directions of things. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of something to that. We'll get Spoon signed here, Genny. I think it's coming down. We need a QB1, damn it. You guys go make a run of Burrow next offseason. Offer him up Dak, flip him for Burrow, toss him a couple of your first round picks. Cowboys are also missing a quarterback. I don't trust Bland. Yeah, even Ravel, Ravel's got to take those steps forward too. And Bland's not the greatest of tacklers. He's got some ball skills, but my man's not a big fan of tackling. It's definitely still a bit of a work in progress there. I think that to me, they were Micah Parsons and not a lot else a couple of years ago. I think that they have come a ways from where they were. I don't think they'll be dominant or the best in the bunch, but I do think there's been some progress there. Cat man, I've been watching all the previous old Hard Knocks episodes to get hyped for the Seahawks time. I died seeing the Browns episode of Baker living in his trailer while in training camp. Brando, would you personally go after Carter with the red flags if he's made available? No. Howie Roseman is I got to win guy. He's not a guy of, hey, I need to offload something, so I'll take a little bit less than I should probably get because I know I'm offloading something that's a little bit broken. Instead, he's going to come at you and he's going to say, no. AJ Brown's worth the first round pick. I want a first round pick for AJ Brown. I don't care if DK Metcalf went for a second. I don't care if this guy went for a second. I don't care that. I want a first. Okay, well, you're going to have to wait a year to get your first round pick. Okay, give me my first round pick. He doesn't give. He doesn't give in. And so he has to win the trades. And I don't want to go get Jalen Carter for Roseman to have to win the trade. On top of, I don't really need Carter, on top of Carter's gotten to the place of being a little bit overrated. There's some questions on Jalen Carter big time right now. There's a reason Eagles will be looking to move him if they're trying to move him. And it isn't because he's awesome and they want to show people how awesome he can be somewhere else. It's like they're going, yeah, there's some issues here. TR chat, B, any realistic trade targets on the Ravens roster? Still like the idea to ship them Olu and a few late round picks for players. You might be able to get Marlon Humphrey kicked free over there. But I think that's about all you could hope to be able to pull. They're not going to give you Travis Jones. Roquan Smith, you're not going to look make a run a Roquan Smith. There's not a lot left over there, really. I think that Mike would want to pick from necessarily. They got some young players they've drafted they want to develop. Jerry Jones is a rich clown, Sean. That's true. Brian, Jody was intentionally dragging her feet because if they'd sold sooner than 10 years after Pollins died, she would have had to have paid 10% of the sale price to the city. That's true. Yeah. I think it was 2024, I think, is when they passed in the spring that they didn't have to give the proceeds. But yes, very important part of that. Good point. Sorry, B. That's one of my favorite dad's favorites. Blessing. Oh yeah. Brando reveals the player was him. It's me, chat. It's me, chat. It was me all along. That'd be awesome. That'd be pretty epic, Banker. I was the insider. I was the buyer. I was the watcher. Sean, oh boy, that'd be awesome if Russell had ownership interest in the Broncos. Sean Payton would have to double up on the defense. It'd get awkward quick down there. Yep, charity. Money goes to charity on the proceeds of the sale per the Paul Allen Trust. It's cool. Brandon 49ers ownership has bought the Rams and is moving them back to St. Louis. Baker Brenda, what's the worst jersey matchup you've seen? For me, Rams versus Bucks. Game looked like mustard versus ketchup face off. It's a good question. I'm trying to think of the matchup that was going on because I think there was another jersey that was awful. The color rush jerseys are horrible, Banker. I mean, like our green color rush jerseys and other all of those to me look pretty awful. But as far as throwback goes, like I thought that the Steelers Bumblebee jersey was horrific with the socks all bumblebeed out. Like, that was not it. That one needs to go back into the think tank and grow for a little while. Those were awful. I kind of like the pewter buck. I like the pewter, I like the Bucks old school. I like the Chargers powder blues. But I am not a fan of the Steelers one. Happy I forgot we hired him as a linebacker coach. He was an S coordinator, but great linebacker coach. There it is, man. Not everybody's built to be that coordinator, you know. We've seen it before. Zach Orr, that was the name. And I couldn't think of the name there. Thank you, Abdi. Baker, with preseason around the corner, your top 5 rookies to watch out for. We'll be doing a show for tomorrow. Is going to be kind of looking a little bit at this. I do have Jadarian Price winning Offensive Rookie of the Year next year, Banker. I've got Ruben Bain winning Defensive Player of the Year. So those would be definitely 2 rookies that I would say look out at. I think Mekhi Lemon is going to get a lot of work out there with Philadelphia. I think Jordan Tyson will be good for the Saints. I thought he was underrated through the draft process by a lot of people. I don't know if I see a lot of impact from rookies beyond that. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a, to me, this is a bit of a representation back to, why this, I think Jacob Rodriguez will be solid for the Dolphins. He's going to get a ton of tackles down there. I think you're going to get solid play from some guys, like Caden McDonald with the Texans. I think will play really solid for them. I think that Amali Noah with the Giants will be solid. In year 1, I think those guys will be, steady. But I don't think you're going to get a lot of impact out of this rookie class. And I think that's representative of the fact, Banker, that it was a weak class. It was a weak draft. And it's going to be hard to see a lot of immediate returns from them because of it. It's going to maybe be hard to see as much impact from them in total because of it when we even get years down the line. But those would be the guys I'd gravitate towards. Yeah, Trap Cat. We got all of our staff almost fully retained offensive wise. Very underrated point, as Brian mentions. Tough with the Mariners, Abdi. You just feel like they're just about to get everything going in the right direction, and then just something in general feels off about the team. Feels like they finally got the full talent there, and then just something's not clicking all the way through, whatever it may be. I don't know what it is. I can't remember what he said about the Texans. I think he was pretty high on the Texans. Advisor of Kicks, what's going on with this Tom Brady helping us win Super Bowl shenanigans? Just heard about it earlier this week. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there with Tom. It does seem that Tom helped out the team in some way or another. And so I don't know what to make of it. If Tom's got a little bit of sour grapes with the Patriots organization, or, he just doesn't want to see Drake May, another quarterback, get some shine in that town. I don't know. But if it helped us, cool. That was a strange one, though. That story was kind of a one out of left field I did not expect. How about Mike letting that thing slip out, too? He knew everybody was going to do the math on that. Green Earth, is Jared Ivey not going to make the 52? I thought McDonald was talking really positive about him, but a lot of people are saying he won't make it. You got one edge spot that's up for play, Green Earth. So you'll keep the four are locked in: Fowler, Uchenna, Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence. It's the 5th edge. And I think there's 2 things that make this really tough for Jared Ivey. Number one, Mike Morris is having a really good offseason based on what we're hearing, and that he seems a guy that's really fighting his ass off to be that guy. So he's going to have some tough competition to be that 5th guy in the roster anyway. Then you also have to keep in mind that, do they not sign anybody else? Do they go for a Jadeveon Clowney out there and they're like, we're going to round this edge rotation out in full. We're going to add one more. And if that happens, then he's got no pathway to making the roster at all. So it is an uphill battle. But if he shows out, if he's had the offseason of his life, and if they don't sign anybody, it's just between him and Mike Morris at that point. Him, Morris, and I'm forgetting there's one other guy on this that I'm spacing out. There's technically two. There's O'Toole, but I'm not really factoring O'Toole in there. And then the other guy that would be in this fight, this battle, essentially, would be Jimmy Sheriff. They're all kind of duking it out. Megan, HawksNest, I was the only Niner fan in the 80s, as the only game we would get here was the Super Bowl, and that was during the Niners. Well, that makes sense. It makes complete sense. It's the only game you could get. BD, I honestly do not know how to feel about this. That's the right reaction. But as long as Schneider holds the control over the team building, I think we'll be fine. Also, I doubt the team will ever leave Seattle. I agree on all accounts. BD, I think having Schneider and having you coming off as not just merely a good season, not just merely a playoff season, but a Super Bowl winning season for a general manager that's won it multiple times over, has got to breed a lot of confidence for that new prospective owner to think, I don't need to shake a lot of this. I don't need to mess this up. I don't need to come in here. He's got this fine. He's captaining this ship very well. Hopefully it goes this direction. I've been a lot of times said he had no dog in the fight. Taking that from Mike Manal's interview was so stupid, especially how afterwards everybody's like, it's Tom Brady that talked to Mike Donald, so Tom's a traitor. Hey, Patriots fans got very sensitive about it. They did. They got a little mad. Too bad. Rich says, what are the chances of us picking up Bagshaw Tuden or Travis Etienne as our running back room is unsuccessful? Well, Etienne just signed Trevor Etienne, not Travis Etienne. I don't think you got a chance. I don't think Etienne's going to give you a lot in the backfield. I think you'd go for a little bit bigger. I think your backfield's kind of set for what it is. There's really not a ready-made trade for a running back out there right now. Maybe down the line, a Jonathan Stewart become available, but Tuden's going to share the load, I think, out there with Rodriguez. That's the 1-2 punch out there for the Jaguars. So he's not likely to be going anywhere. Mr. Dog, how you doing? Yeah, he said Trevor Etienne. Travis is the brother that's on the Saints, but I know that there's Trevor Etienne as well. Trevor is on Carolina. 4th round pick on Carolina last year. But I don't even think Carolina's going to let that guy go because Jonathan Brooks is coming off the injury. They don't know where that's at. And then they let Rico Dowdle go in free agency. Well, definitely some demons in that closet. Trap Cat, laughing aloud. If you were the buyer, Brandon, I would be totally insanely crazy waiting to see how the NFC roundtable was played out. Laugh my ass off. Oh, you talk about coming in with a force of 1,000 wins. Talk about me feeling myself. So it's not weird at all that the new owner was a 49er, right? Laughing out loud. I mean, it's a little weird. We're going to get over it. But yeah, I mean, let's acknowledge it's a little odd. Jail uniforms, jailhouse rock. Mike's expecting a daughter in December. Any worry it might come close to the Rams game and we'd have to have Leslie coaching the game? That's not a good job on Mike's part. That's not a good job of planning by Mike there. Gibson says, I like Bailey from TTU and Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from the Titans. They have Cam Ward now. He'll get some targets. I like those guys in the long term for me, Gibson. I'm not anti those guys at all. I think Bailey's going to have some struggles in defending the run that's going to keep him off the field at times and make him more situational rusher. I think with Carnell Tate too, the thing is there's the marrying between him and Cam Ward, Ward being a little bit more of an off-script kind of guy and how he operates, and Tate being more of an on-script kind of receiver. We'll see if that marries as well between them. As well, the Titans went out and they signed a slot receiver this offseason. Alec Ionamore they drafted last year. Wouldn't shock me if Alec has a little bit more of a chemistry there as that X receiver for them early on, and that Cardinal has to kind of wait a little bit to kind of emerge there as wide receiver 1 or as wide receiver 1X, if it were. Yeah, Greener. I thought Caleb Downs' tape was great at Ohio State. One of the easier prospects to evaluate coming out of this last draft. I couldn't quite get to the point of putting him up as a blue chip prospect, but he was damn close. Really close. Simply Sims, with the Mariners, it's like we can't give these other teams a run for their money when we play them. If they beat Seattle, they beat Seattle convincingly. Yeah. It's a frustrating team that's been building up and feeling like even got some of the young talent injecting onto the roster. Injuries have definitely come up a little bit. Stars not performing at the level you like to see them, but it's just been a frustrating year. There's still time though. That's the nice part about this Major League Baseball season being so long. Yeah, bipolar's right. Kind of feels like a bipolar team a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, the ALS thing's a scary thing with Chris Johnson. That interview, man, that's a scary disease. There's a lot of scary ones out there, but that one is that one's one where you feel for the guy. Mazes Proxness, not even Brady could have helped the Patriots against us. I don't think he could have, no. Nothing would have saved them. Nothing. Yep, we got Vinod Khosla buying the Hawks for $9.6 billion. Amazing shot. Not cheap. Good luck for new owners. Sounds like they're in it just for the money. I don't know why you would take away that they're in it just for the money. But you never know with any owner. And I think that there's a lot of things here. They certainly have their share of philanthropic pursuits to the Khosla family, which in itself just shows you if that's, if we're looking for indicators, you're an amazing shot. And I'm not taking away that you might be proven right. We'll see on that. But if you're looking for indicators from what they've shown in their past history, it's not necessarily that they don't have philanthropic pursuits, that there isn't stuff that they do that's altruistic, which in itself, if you're just all about money at every turn, you're not necessarily always going to have that as a way you're going to be. But that's the thing about changing owners, is that, you never know what you're going to get until you get to the place of seeing what they are and how they're going to be. And every owner is a little bit different. I think the thing that helps this owner out and should help this owner out, you'll never know if they'll take the rule, is that they've got a great standard in place that they can operate off of. What the last guy do? How'd the last guy operate here? How'd the last guy do and deal with this? And that you don't have to then, think up and be creative. You can just model yourself upon what Paul and Jody have accomplished here, because it's taken them to the highest of heights. Why wouldn't you? Why would you feel the need to have to, figure it all out anew? And when it comes to money, all of these NFL owners are making profits. Nobody's out there not making money hand over fist. And a guy like Paul Allen bought this team 30 years ago for $200 million and now selling it for $9.6 billion. On top of your yearly profits, there's a pretty hefty profit to be made when you eventually do sell the team down the line. So we'll see how it goes with them, but I don't know if that's as much a big concern to me that that's going to be a reality. But like I say, you never know. You never know. Baker, if the owner was a former 49er, I would raise an eyebrow. Not if the owner was a former Jets, Browns, Lions player. I would want that curse removed from my team. Not back. So KJ Wright was also a former Seahawk, now coaching for the Niners. I don't think we should worry about the sabotage aspect. Just doesn't make sense. No, I just don't think it makes sense. The initial concerns of it and worries of it, I get that. But then you just start to ponder it and get beneath the surface of it, not vex. So to your point, you go, this doesn't actually add up. It doesn't actually make sense when you really walk it all through. Sean says, only bad thing about winning the Super Bowl is the new bunch of bandwagon fans we will get. That's always going to be a little bit of an inevitability on winning the Super Bowl. I will say the thing that you get with Hawk fans is because they have tasted the Super Bowl success in recent years, in the last 10 years, that there is a little bit of a model of understanding of this that I think has kind of already created those fans that were there. But, you're always going to get a little bit of that. HSG, the only issue I see with the owner is the substation is going to come with him. I hope not. Amazing shot. Fair enough. I would rather have Ballmer. He's passionate with the Clippers and winning, buying talent, etc. Can't deny that, man. And Ballmer was throughout this process my number one choice. We'll see if this party can kind of do the same sort of thing and fold up to that standard. So I think that it's two different things. Amazing shot. I think sometimes on this stuff it has to be thought as one thing or the other. I think you can do two things of this. I think you can both have confidence that who's coming in here to buy this, and that, as I've said on this amazing shot, you have an Allen family that has stewarded this team for 30 years. You have a brother and a sister who absolutely showed you that they were all about winning, that they were not about money, that they were about creating that standard. And that you have the sister who inherited from her brother and took that torch over. And now 30 years down the line, they're going to kind of extinguish that torch here and now at the sale of this team after all of that hard work you did, after all those years of being Prometheus and pushing that rock to the top of the hill. It's a possibility they could do it. I'd offer to you, though, amazing shot, it doesn't fit to form with how they've been. More of what would fit to form is they do an exhaustive, thorough process in this selling process, and they make sure who they're selling to is not going to move the team, is not motivated solely by the monetary, and that they're going to be making their profit, and that they do their proper legwork to ensure that that's not going to happen as much as they can do. It's always a bit of a guessing game to it, but I trust in Jody and what she's done to be able to maintain that standard and not muck it up at the 99th percent point of your ownership spot. You've just been awesome all the way through, and right at the 99th percentile point, you're like, yep, we're going to completely fall off the cliff here. I don't think it's going to happen. Possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. All right, we'll wrap it up on this note. We've got a show coming back for you guys tomorrow as well. So it's going to be a long show, which is why we're cutting this a little shorter than we normally do tonight, 2 hours and 47 minutes in. So we will be coming back tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We're going to be doing a season outlook of the NFL. It's not Seahawks. We're going to be doing the Seahawks preview on Wednesday of this week. But this week on Sunday, it's going to be a look at the upcoming NFL season. I'm going to be talking to you guys about some league-wide trends that I'm expecting to see, where the game's going, running, passing, scoring, defense, some just grander items. We're going to get into some of the down and dirty details, like, looking at record predictions, looking at award predictions for the upcoming season, getting into a little bit of fantasy predictions as well. So we're really going to cover end in next tomorrow as far as looking at the season predictions and the upcoming NFL season and what I think is going to happen. So I've tried to do a lot of legwork on this and try to get into the depths of this one deep, and hope you guys like that one. Appreciate everybody today for checking out the show and rocking with me on this kind of just sudden stream that we just did out of nowhere. Really always appreciate you guys tuning in for me on the fly like that, like you guys do as well. Appreciate all of the donations and support on the channel. You guys are awesome on that as ever. Just a ton of donations and support. Last couple comments on in here. If you got a question or two, go ahead and pop them on in as we'll finish this out. Drake says Seahawks trade 3 first-round picks for Brandon Ayuk. That's pretty good. Or Titans, 49ers can now actually legally, financially, physically say they own the Seahawks. Kind of. It's the only way you guys are going to own the Seahawks. I'll tell you that. Hopefully we can see you tomorrow, Megan. Why Indians? Well, they made the bids. They won the rights. It's more Americanized, I think, at this point. HG B&B show Thursday for the sale of the team. B, I don't know. I've got a Wednesday show. I'm kind of trying to keep things light up until next week per se, because things just don't kick off as much interest wise with the Hawk fan base until we kind of round into just the opening of training camp. But we'll see. See if we can put something together. Newski, thanks for the emergency stream. My pleasure, my man. Always a great time with you guys in here on the stream. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you on that. Have the owner burn the Niners jersey in an act of, he's got to like prove his fandom. Like all of your Niner jerseys out, center of Lumen Field, and you burn them in front of all of us as we watch. And you better be smiling the whole time. Prove your loyalty, Vinod. Prove it. I love it, Niski. Go, man. A little over $9 billion for the Hawks. Absolutely not cheap new owners. Yeah, I don't think you're looking to spend $9 billion only to go cheap after that. And we've entered an era now where it's not an era that it formerly once used to be, where you could have a collection of owners, a collection of people that didn't necessarily have a lot of money, but could own an NFL team. You know, or a guy that just kind of scraped enough money together like Jerry Jones did, you have just enough money to buy the team, and then he built his kind of fortune from there. You know, there's a lot of owners that have built their fortune from owning the football team, you know, and selling out parts and pieces of it or just finding ways to monetize it. I just don't think that's what you're going to get now with the new brand of owners that are going to come in having to spend the money that they've had to spend. You've seen this in places like Washington with the new ownership group that's come in there, Denver with the new ownership group that came in there and had to spend the money that they had to spend. Those didn't walk in and get tight-fisted. Those owners came in and they were willing to spend whatever it took the moment they walked in there to start to build winners. And I think you're going to see more of that fitting to form here with Vinod. I just think this is the new standard that's in place. We're out of the old Wild West world of some of those owners like your Ken Bearings of old, your Al Davises of old, your Jerry Jones of old. I think that those guys have been priced out of this. And now you've got to be a little bit more even keel with this if you're going to be an NFL owner. I thank you guys again for watching today. Have another great time with you guys. Always on this. We will be back in less than 24 hours at 5 p.m. for a show looking at this NFL season. We got a Wednesday show of Seahawks training camp preview as well. So we're going to be hitting this hard as we start to ramp on up here for the NFL season, as we are now on to July 11th. We are now merely almost 7 days away, or we are literally 7 days away from rookies reporting to training camp. So we are almost there, folks. We are this close. And now we've got a new ownership group. One of those great grand questions that had been kind of hovering over the top of this team of uncertainty. And now we've got certainty and that's closed up. And now we can move on to the next order of business. And we'll see if this doesn't kick some things free and allow for some things to occur now. I don't know if it will, but we'll see on that. And you know, I will be reporting on it every step of the way here as we now lead ourselves into the 2026 season and the potential for our Seattle Seahawks to repeat as NFL champions. I thank you so much, guys, for watching tonight. If you can do me this real kind favor, walking out the door, hit that like button. If you can sub on up, if you're not subbed up, I really would appreciate that as well. We're on the road to 30,000 subscribers. I would love to get there sooner than later if we can, and you can help us get there today, and it is absolutely free as well. We got the Hawks Nest Clips channel rolling if you're looking for clips of these live stream shows, so you don't have the time to necessarily do 3, 4, 5 hours of a live stream show. Well, those are going to be over there on that. We've got almost a daily clip being released over there on that channel. We're over on Facebook, TikTok. We got the podcast stuff going in full, so you can catch me all over on those spots of it. And of course, the roundtable this year, the NFC West roundtable, will be hitting you up twice a week this year. So we've got a hell of a year en route for you guys. I am so excited for this upcoming NFL season for a lot of different reasons, including all the grade A hopeful content we'll be able to bring your guys' way. I will be back here soon in less than 24 hours. Got a new owner. Got a few of you a little bit nervous and a little bit worried. So let me assuage some of those fears. Let me calm down some of those worries. Don't you worry. Hey, you're hearing some of those pundits talk about 7 and 10. Oh, you got a new ownership out there. We are the champions. We have a standard set, a standard so hard set that even a new owner can't be knocked off that spot. He's got to fit his feet into the grooves. So keep the faith, my fellow Seahawks fans, and know that this model is going to continue forward. Know that we're just getting warmed up. Know that the national media continues to undersell us, and know that once again, we are going to repeat as champions. And so just in case you have forgotten, let me remind you, don't you ever forget. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Go Hawks.